How's going, guys? Welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the immortal god sage in the Mass Effect and got harem with FemShep? Part 4. Huge shout out to Kuro Tamashi for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. On the Citadel. While Shepard and her crew headed to recruit Subject Zero on Purgatory, Naruto was walking around the Citadel in search of a bank to deposit the change of what they ate the former day. Before doing that, he had appeared with his Harem right in front of Itachi, who in his surprise, jumped and had thrown to the floor the food that he was about to give to his customers. Evidently, the sudden apparition surprised the customers, but Naruto didn't pay them much attention and had told Itachi that he desired to pay his bill and if he had seen the gloves and helmet of Shepard's armor. Itachi nodded and picked up what he threw to the floor before heading to the closet to bring the items that Naruto had requested. Once he had them in hands, he walked over Naruto and handed them over. Naruto thanked him and made a shadow clone that returned said items to the commander. Some weak-willed people, when they saw him replicating himself, lost consciousness while others just gaped. Naruto ignored the stares and paid his bill, in addition to what Itachi had thrown to the floor because of him. He said goodbye, but not before getting close to the few people who were there to erase from their memories what had happened moments ago. After all, he did not want everyone to know about his abilities yet, except for the Normandy's crew. He walked away after saying goodbye to Itachi. Naruto then went to the Seaseg station and there he requested Bailey for information about places where he could deposit his money. Bailey recommended that he should go to the financial district of the Citadel in an X3M. He also told him to be careful with some Volus and Turians, and that he should always request the Turians for a receipt if he didn't want troubles afterward. Naruto nodded, grateful for the information, and left the station to get to the public shuttles, as Bailey had recommended it. Although he could fly or teleport there with his kamui, he wanted to do what Bailey said. Besides, he would attract too much attention if he did anything like that recklessly. Once he reached the nearest rapid transit, he stared at the vehicles since he didn't know how to use them. Consequently, he approached a Turian that was about to board a vehicle along with another Turian. "Hey, wait a minute," Naruto said, approaching towards them. Both Turians stopped and looked at Naruto. "What's going on?" asked the one on the driver's side. Naruto just stared into his eyes, which made both Turians look at each other in confusion. Although, after a few seconds, Naruto spoke. "Thank you," he said, smiling and raising his right thumb before heading to an X3M. The Turians looked at each other while shrugging. Humans. After that, they boarded the vessel and headed to somewhere on the Citadel. Naruto, on the other hand, had opened the X3M's door and sat in the driver's seat. "Okay, here we go," Naruto said, with the intention of putting into practice what he had learned from that Turian after accessing his mind. He held the wheel of the aircraft, touched a few buttons, and the ship left the parking lot at a neck-breaking speeds towards the very busy airspace of the Citadel. "Oh no!" Naruto exclaimed while trying not to collide with the sky cars that were around him. He turned the aircraft recklessly several times, barely dodging the other airships near him. As he tried not to kill himself and those around him, he saw a blinking light on a screen that was beneath the board. It was a button, so he pressed it while dodging more shuttles. After doing it, on the screen, a person with an angry face appeared. "Hey, you maniac! Who taught you how to drive?" a human asked. "Sorry," Naruto answered, touching the blinking button again and seeing another angry person who demanded the same. Even CCC officers had contacted him to say that they had received reports that he was driving the sky car recklessly. Naruto continued apologizing, but with every second that went by, he learned very quickly the proper way to use the X3M. Hence, after a few minutes he could drive it without problems, which made the complaints stop. He proudly smiled as he took the corresponding exit to go to the financial district. "I did it," Naruto said, with a smile and puffing out his chest. Suddenly, he heard a voice in his head. "I'm going out." That caught Naruto's attention, and before he could articulate anything, some chakra of black color came out of his body and began to take shape very quickly. It was a little black fox with 10 tails. Naruto sighed in relief as he thought that Kurama hadn't been able to manifest himself in such a reduced size, as he was larger when he drew him out of the ghetto mazo. Thus, he turned his head and looked down. You can make yourself that small? I thought that your maximum reduced size was the one when I took you out from the ghetto mazo a few days ago, Naruto said as he looked at him, but not for long, as he had to pay attention to the road to avoid crashing against the vessels that were flying around. I already told you, you were not the only one who improved over the years. But that's not important. I've come out of your body for a reason. We need to talk. Kurama spoke with a serious expression on his face. Naruto sighed and replied, Please, Kurama. I'm in no mood for such talks. He thought that Kurama wanted to speak about the outcome of the discussion he had with Shepard in her cabin the last night. Kurama growled, showed his teeth, and replied, You cut connection with me last night. You know very well that I hate when you do that when we're still talking. He was not kidding, this time, he was indeed annoyed. Naruto slightly turned his head, but looked back to the front almost instantly, to slow down the X3M and land it. Sorry, pal. At that moment, I didn't want to continue the conversation. I was tired, he said between a sigh and slowly placing the X3M in the parking lot. That's a feeble apology. You know very well that I don't like that, and even worse that you continue doing it after everything we have gone through together, he said with a frown, visibly irritated. Naruto sighed and pressed the button to open the skycar's door before looking at Kurama. Sorry, I won't do it again, he said, raising his hand towards Kurama and placing the other one on his chest. Kurama nodded. I hope so, although he kept on gazing at him. Naruto then lowered his hands and asked, Well, will you come back now or? Kurama shook his head and answered, Well, the answer is simple. I also want to see this galaxy with my own eyes and not through you. I'm planning to relish my freedom to the utmost in this place. Besides, I'm looking forward to having a good fight while we're here. I hope that whatever the Shinigami has warned you about is something worthwhile. Although I wouldn't mind crushing a few Reapers with my tails. I'm sure they'll be surprised when they see my new size, hee. He laughed in amusement, and about to leave the X3M. Naruto didn't think much of what the Shinigami had warned him about, but that did not mean that he would not take action on the matter when that threat came along. It doesn't matter who it is, we'll eliminate them like anyone who gets in the way of my mission, he stated as he rose from his seat to leave the vessel. Kurama smiled and added, That's the Naruto I remember. Naruto smiled back and continued, As for the Reapers, they're already heading for this way. I estimate that they'll arrive in approximately 8 months. I won't be able to prepare this entire galaxy in such a short time. Nevertheless, he could not help smiling at the end. Kurama, seeing the smile, could not help doing it as well as he also went out of the X3M. But with the way you're smiling, I can feel that you have something in mind. Naruto nodded as he walked out of the parking lot. Of course, I always have several plans for cases like these. The Reapers will find a nice surprise when they leave the dark space to enter this galaxy. And what would that be? Kurama asked, interested, jumping high to lay down on Naruto's head. After all, he had reduced his size considerably. You'll know eventually. When Shepard decides to gather the species of this galaxy to get ready, then I'll tell them, and you too will know, he replied, looking up. Kurama just nodded and said nothing. He just continued watching Naruto as he walked through the Presidium to go to the financial district. As they walked through the street, Kurama could not help glancing sideways as he could hear several whisper thanks to his improved hearing. He looked again to the side and saw that some people of different species were looking at him. That bothered him, but he could not know what these people were saying because he lacked the ability of Naruto of accessing in the minds of people and learning things from them. Thus, he did not understand the different languages in this galaxy. He could understand the humans only, as Naruto had added the language to his brain after going up aboard the Normandy. Hence, he looked down and said, Hey Naruto! Add to my brain the other languages that you've learned. Naruto nodded and lowered the tiny Kurama on his head to the floor, and once he did, placed his right palm on his head. Done! Naruto said almost immediately. Kurama just nodded, and only now, he could hear that most of those present were asking what sort of creature he was because his 10 tails caused confusion in most of those present. Although there were a few ones, like the Asari, who were laughing and stating that he was cute, which made Kurama growl in anger. Naruto could also hear the remarks, but he didn't bother to pay attention because he wanted to deposit the money that Shepherd had given him. Although he could not help grimacing on certain occasions when those Asari spoke of his tender resembling of a kitten. Nevertheless, with nerves of steel, he could ignore all those comments, contrary to Kurama, who was slowly beginning to lose the little patience he had left. Although Naruto could not continue with his objective of reaching a bank, as several people, a few Asari and a few Solarians, had surrounded him. The first ones had asked Naruto if they could carry Kurama in their arms, while the Solarians asked him where he had found the animal on his head. Kurama was about to burst with anger after hearing all the nonsense, but the straw that broke the camel's back was the next thing that said a Turian CCC officer. "Mister, it is forbidden to go into the Presidium with pets. So I request you to hand over your pet to the animal control. It will be returned to you once you finish your affairs in this district," he said as he lit his Omni tool to contact the animal control. Kurama, meanwhile, has suffered enough of such daring. So helplessly, he jumped from Naruto's head toward that Turian while shouting, "You insolent!" He opened his jaw and closed it very quickly once he had the Turian's arm inside. He nailed his big and sharpened teeth unceremoniously, which easily pierced through the armor and skin of the CCC officer, who cried out in pain as he felt the powerful bite. The agent, amid the screams, demanded Naruto to control his pet, which made Kurama increase the strength of his bite. Nonetheless, he was not biting too hard, just enough to cause pain to the Turian. He did not intend to sever his arm, which he could have done it easily with the first bite. Naruto, seeing the fuss, approached Kurama and said, "Kurama, stop already. Remember that I have to do something else, not waste our time here." The CCC officer instantly felt that Kurama diminished the intensity of his bite. Subsequently, Kurama grunted and pulled his mouth off his arm, which fell limply. "Okay, you're a lucky one, Turian. The next time that you disrespect the king of all beasts, then not even he will be able to save you," he said, the latter referring to Naruto, who had approached the hurt and shocked Turian, after hearing Kurama speaking again. The people who had surrounded them after Kurama had bitten the Turian just remained silent, not wanting to say anything that might upset the king of all beasts as Kurama had proclaimed himself. The Turian had sat down after requesting medical assistance, as well to ask the animal control officers to hurry up. Nonetheless, when seeing Naruto getting closer, he raised his head just in time to see him crouching in front of him. "Let me help you," Naruto requested as he attempted to approach his hand to him. The Turian, however, pulled his hand away. "Leave me alone, you and your pet have done enough. If you don't want me to arrest you, you'd better get out of here," he said, angry with Naruto and Kurama. The latter was beside Naruto, baring his teeth to the Turian, who returned a defiant expression. "Yes, come on. Keep it up, I care very little that you are the king of all beasts. When you're in a cage, we will see if anyone cares about what you say." Kurama growled angrily, but before he could do anything, Naruto put his right arm in front of him, stopping him in the act. So he looked at the Turian and continued, "Seriously, let me help you. The bite of my partner is not a normal one. Soon you will start to feel strange." "Like what?" the Turian asked with a raised eyebrow. "Do you really want to know? It'll be terrible if I don't do it, so let me take care of you now before it's too late," Naruto replied. The Turian, intrigued, looked at Kurama. Upon having his eyes on him, he could see that foam, and what appeared to be a substance of green color, was coming out of his mouth. Now, intimidated, he looked back at Naruto. "Oh, okay." Then he growled as he approached his hurt arm. Everything the Turian saw was a genjutsu of Naruto. He wanted to help him, but he did not wish to force him when there were so many people around. Hence, and without further ado, he continued with the treatment. In the crowd, a red-haired and short-haired woman, who wore a white doctor's coat, came a little closer to see what the strange man would do to heal the wounded Turian. This woman was Dr. Chloe Michel. She had left the medical center to get supplies in the Presidium, and while she was at it, she had noticed the fuss and had decided to approach. Nonetheless, when she saw the wounded Turian, she almost went to help him, but since Naruto had offered himself before Chol could, she decided to continue watching. She didn't see him withdrawing any tools or turning his Omni tool on. Everyone had just seen him approaching his hands, and these had glowed green. They believed he was a biotic due to that bright, but none of them knew that the biotics could heal people with their abilities. The Turian, meanwhile, stopped feeling the pain very quickly, in addition to a feeling of relief in his whole being. After a few seconds, the hands of Naruto stopped glowing and got to his feet, as well as the Turian. "How do you feel?" Naruto asked. The Turian was surprised because he cured him so rapidly without using Medigel. He looked at his arm, then at Naruto to answer. "I feel, well, with a lot of vigor. As if I were able to mount 10 guards in a row. But don't tell that to my superior," he whispered the latter. Naruto chuckled and replied, "Understood." The Turian smiled, and when he wanted to ask him what he did, somebody else spoke first. "Hello, may I have your attention for a moment?" This person spoke with a pronounced French accent behind Naruto. Naruto turned around and realized that it was Chloe. "Go ahead, doctor. I'm all ears." Naruto already knew her a bit due to Shepard's memories. Still, that he has called her Dr. was no cause for surprise due to her clothes. Chloe nodded and continued. "I've never before seen any biotics with healing abilities. That's why I would like you to come with me to the medical clinic to show it to my colleagues there. Perhaps we could get more personal if you share the secret to use your powers to heal other people, and incidentally, you could help in the clinic. I would pay you for your services." The latter, indeed, caught Naruto's attention. So he smiled and opened his mouth to speak, but the CCC Turian officer was faster than him. "I likewise want to offer you something. Look, what do you say if we go and see my superior? I'll tell him what you did and possibly he'll propose to you a position at CCC. We could use a doctor in our ranks, especially for the guys who are in the red light district of the Citadel. Things can get very ugly there." Other people had also offered him jobs. Some Solarians invited him to research centers so that other biotics could develop medical skills with their powers. Some Asari said they would like to do something similar, but what they really wanted was create implants with samples of his body not to lose so much time. Even a Krogan offered Kurama a job to fight Varans in Tuchanka. Naruto, on the other hand, decided to speak. He raised both hands and began to lower them repeatedly as he told them to be quiet. Slowly, everyone got silent, and finally, Naruto could speak. "First, I'm not a doctor. I'm simply a kind of healer. Secondly, thank you all for your offers. However, I'm sorry for rejecting them, but I have other affairs pending on this place. In addition, I have a mission outside the Citadel, and I cannot stay in this place for long. Thirdly, you should forget all this." Then he snapped his fingers, and his eyes flashed a little bit, which instantly made those look at each other and ask themselves what they were doing here. As they received no reply, they dispersed to continue what they were doing before they had gathered. Meanwhile, Chloe watched this with confusion, not knowing why they were suddenly acting as if nothing had happened before. Thus, Naruto approached her, put a hand on her shoulder and spoke as he walked forward along with her. "Dr. Chloe, I'll help you with what you've asked me. But not now, it's still not the time. By the way, don't say anything about this to anyone. When the time comes, I'll contact you." Then they stopped, and Chloe turned to look at him better. "I don't remember telling you my name, how did you know?" she demanded. Naruto made a gesture of surprise. He had dropped his guard inadvertently. Nevertheless, after briefly thinking, he came up with a simple answer. "Oh, right. I'm on a mission with the Commander Shepard, and you had previously met. She told me a little about you." That was a lie, but Naruto thought there was no need for the doctor to know the truth. "Oh, the Commander. I've heard rumors that she had died, but recently she was in the Citadel, and almost everyone found out that the Council reinstated her Spectre status. Well, I'm glad she's okay. In any case, I'll do what you told me, sir." "Menma Namikaze," Naruto answered. He did not tell her his real name not because he did not trust Chloe, but because he wanted to continue using his false name within the Citadel. "Nice to meet you, Menma. Then I'll wait for you until you complete your mission with the Commander." Tell her from my part that I'll continue giving her discounts on medical supplies that she acquires on my clinic. I will, doctor. Have a nice day. Then they both shook hands, and the doctor said goodbye to him and Kurama, who had watched their interaction. It seemed that Naruto had erased from her memory the part where he had become angry because the Turian had called him pet, as Chloe had said something nearly equal and had addressed to him as if he were a regular animal, but with 10 tails. Once they saw her far enough, Kurama jumped on Naruto's head, who walked to another place. More specifically, to the nearest bank. Nevertheless, before Naruto could go far from his former position, Kurama spoke. Hey, you shouldn't have erased the memory of that Krogan. What he was offering me seemed interesting. Naruto chuckled and replied. You can't fool me. You just want to kill something. I doubt that these Varens will be sufficient to please you. Just wait about 5 or 10 more years and then we'll focus ourselves on the Reapers. That will please us both. Kurama smiled, but then raised an eyebrow and looked down. That much time? You stated that the Reapers would arrive within approximately 8 months. Does that surprise for them has anything to do with the time that you just say? What I mean is that we will go to the time dimension again. You, Red Shepherd, some people that I'll choose to train and although I won't assign them to train there for so long, as they could die. Anyway, as I told you, you'll know better about it once I sit down to talk with all the leaders of this galaxy. Kurama looked at him with a raised eyebrow, but then shrugged and rested on Naruto's head, carefully watching the Presidium. He saw that people were even watching him, only this time, there were no remarks about his appearance. They merely looked at him for a few moments before continuing walking. After a few minutes of walking through the financial district, Naruto could see the bank and quietly entered the building. Indoors there were several people, the receptionists were Volus, and some of them were Turians while the customers were a selection of different species. He moved to a line that was moving very fast, and when arriving at the cashier, who in this case was a Volus, he received him saying, Welcome to the Galactic Bank of Citadel, Earth Clan breathes. What can I do for you? I want to open an account in this bank and deposit this money, Naruto replied, showing the coupon. Oh, that won't take long breathes. Just give me the serial number of your Omnitool so we can finish, the Volus said as he pulled a machine to record the number of his Omnitool. Nonetheless, Naruto scratched his cheek and answered. Well, the thing is that I don't own one of those things, that's why I got a credit coupon. The Volus made an expression of understanding as he said, Oh, so in an old-fashioned way, eh? Breathes. Naruto smiled a bit embarrassed but nodded. The Volus saw no problems with it, and searched for something in his post, taking out from one of the drawers a big book that was dusty. The Volus dusted it, opened the book and from there took a form that he handed it over to Naruto. Please fill all the details from that form, Breathes. Besides, I need you to give me your ID number, Breathes. Naruto instantly provided the fake number that Bailey had given him and saw that the Volus wrote it in the console. Meanwhile, Naruto focused on the form and within a second, he completed it, but he had to stop to draw the Volus' attention near the end. Pardon me, Sir Volus. Here it says that I need the signature and ID number of somebody who can certify this information. Is it absolutely necessary? He asked because he had not brought anyone with him. The Volus asked him to give him the document to observe it better. Then he checked his system and told Naruto that it was necessary, and that these forms needed the data to complete the document. Naruto nodded and asked if he could take the form with him to get the signature. The Volus replied that there were no problems, but that he would lose his place in the line and perhaps another person would have to attend him when he came back. Hence, Naruto said goodbye to the Volus and went to a corner where no one could see him. He looked at Kurama and asked if he could return to his body, but hearing that he wanted to be out a little longer ended that. Naruto nodded and disappeared along with Kurama in a yellow flash, towards Purgatory, where Shepherd and her team already were. Osen System Maximum Security Prison Purgatory. Shepherd, Zaid, and Kasumi had arrived at the maximum security prison called Purgatory in Osen. There, some members of the Blue Suns, who had requested Shepherd and her squad to drop their weapons, greeted them. Obviously, Shepherd had refused, which had caused a dispute on the ship. Nonetheless, a Turian, called Kuro, who was the warden of the prison, had stopped this by saying that it was just the standard procedure. Shepard had nodded, but she didn't hand the weapons over, which Kuro had allowed because he trusted the security of his prison in the case that Shepard attempted something. Shepard was not worried and asked Jack's location. Kuro replied that she needed to go to the out-processing area of the ship to receive the package. Thanking the warden for the help, Shepard had left the lobby and walked towards the specified location, but not before stopping and talking to some prison guards and even with some prisoners who were in the corridors. The latter wanted Shepard to buy them to get out of jail, but they quickly changed their minds once Zaid informed them that they were in this place for Jack. She passed through a gate and came to a room, a place where a man who was in front of a console had told her that the out-processing area was through the door on the far side of the room. Hence, Shepard and her team walked to that place, and when they were in front of the door, it automatically swung open. Nonetheless, Shepard and the others raised an eyebrow as the room was a prison cell, and before she could ask what was going on, she heard Kuril's voice saying through the intercom. "My apologies, Shepard. You are more valuable as a prisoner than a customer. Drop your weapons and proceed into the open cell. You will not be harmed." Shepard after that gestured with her middle finger as she looked at the surveillance camera. "Go to hell. I'll send you there myself." Upon saying that, in front of Shepard, a yellow flash appeared, and instantly Naruto and Kurama showed up, making Kasumi and Zaid quickly drew their weapons out in surprise. "Activate systems!" Kuro exclaimed before anyone could speak. After they had heard his exclamation, Kasumi took the floor when she saw that it was Naruto. "Oh, well. It's the boy of the whisker marks and a fox?" she asked the latter, looking strangely at Kurama, who was giving her an intimidating smile, which had an effect on her. Nonetheless, she shook her head and looked back at Naruto to ask, "How did you do that? It's a new kind of tactical cloak that I'm not aware of." "No, it isn't that, Kasumi. I'll explain you later. I came for another reason." He paused and looked at Shepard, who seemed to be having a staring contest with Kurama. "Shepard, I need you to sign some papers for me. Can you help me?" Naruto asked, which stopped the match. Shepard was about to answer, but could not because several Blue Sun soldiers entered from the main door. She quickly ordered everyone to take cover, including Kurama, who ignored her and decided to remain in the same place to see what Naruto would do. Naruto hid behind chairs just like Shepard, who looked at Naruto as she prepared herself to open fire. "Naruto, you said that you wanted me to train you. Well then, this will be your first real combat training. There's only one condition: you can't use any of your special moves, do you understand?" she asked before standing up slightly and shooting against some Turians and Batarians that were approaching with shotguns. "Yes, ma'am!" Naruto exclaimed, smiling with excitement. Shepard did it as well, but then put a serious face and asked after ordering Zaid and Kasumi to cover them. "Do you have any knowledge with guns?" It seemed a silly question, but she didn't lose anything to ask it. Surprised, she saw Naruto nodding and saying, "Something like that. Does this count?" Subsequently, Shepard saw in shock as his right arm became a kind of cannon that gave off dozens of other cannons. That caused a sweat drop on Shepard's head, due to how extravagant the technique looked. Nevertheless, she shook her head before looking into his eyes, realizing that they had changed to those purple eyes. Again, she shook her head and answered, "No, that doesn't count. Take this," she said as she handed him her M4 shuriken over. "You must pull the trigger and watch out the recoil, it shoots in bursts. Now, get ready!" Shepard exclaimed while surrounding herself with her biotic cloak to use her biotic charge, swatting one of the Batarians that was without shield thanks to Kasumi and Zaid. Naruto, upon having the gun in his hand, returned the other one to normal. He looked at the small gun, then to his mission partners and finally to the attackers. "Well, I didn't want to kill anybody. But I asked to be trained, and this is part of the training," Naruto thought as he rose from his cover and carried his gun forward. He pointed it to a Batarian who already seemed to be at death's door, but when he was about to pull the trigger with many doubts, he had the pleasant surprise of seeing an Fenris mech approaching his position. "I think that for now I won't have to kill anyone," he thought with a smile, now pointing to the Fenris. Aiming was the easy part, but after shooting, he could not even hit it once because the recoil took him by surprise. Still, he quickly put the weapon in the correct position, this time bearing in account the recoil, and fired again at the robotic dog. This time, the bullets made contact. However, he ran into another problem. All the bullets had bounced from the mech that was already a few centimeters away from him and was about to release its electric charges on him. He took distance from the mech, quickly jumping back to cover himself behind a table and give himself a few more seconds. Once there, he pointed his gun at the robotic canine, but again, he met another problem, which was bothering him already. When he had tried to shoot, the gun just failed to do so. So he quickly shouted to Shepard, who was easily finishing off with the enemies with a combination of her most powerful biotic attacks accompanied by accurate shots from the weapons of all the squad members. "Shepard! This thing won't shoot!" Shepard quickly understood what he meant, so she immediately took one of her thermal clips and threw at Naruto, who caught it instantly. "Remove the thermal clip from your weapon and put that in," Shepard said as she threw her shockwave towards the enemies without shields. Naruto, meanwhile, looked at the gun and searched for the place where the thermal load was. He did not take long and saw a kind of switch to remove the load, and when he was about to press it, he saw that the Fenris was already in front of him and freeing from its head an electric current that gave entirely on him, which made him drop the weapon. Zaid and Kasumi quickly turned around to help him. Nonetheless, they stopped and raised an eyebrow when seeing Naruto standing still and receiving the discharges from the mech as if it were nothing, but with a look of annoyance that increased by every discharge he received from the Fenris. Shepard also turned to see Naruto in time clenching hard his right fist and with a look of anger on his face. Hence, Shepard looked at her squad and exclaimed, "Zaid, Kasumi, get out of there!" Both of them followed her order without complaint and went forward to finish off the rest of the enemies that kept coming through the entrance of the room. Moreover, just as they had done that, all those present saw Naruto raising his right fist and lowering it quickly towards the mech. "You are! Stop bothering me!" Naruto then touched the mech, crushing it instantly. But unwittingly, he rammed his fist into the concrete floor of the room. The floor creaked and cracked very quickly, while the supporting pillars that were below broke due to Naruto's overwhelming force, thus making the floor fall to the lower level. "What the hell?" said one of the prison guards as he tried to run towards the exit, but could not make it, so he fell to the lower level like the other guards who were nearby, which caused broken bones or awful deaths due to the debris that fell upon them. Shepard, Kasumi, and Zaid had managed to reach safety, the last two thanks to Shepard's order. Some of the guards who were going to enter the room also managed to survive, but they wouldn't try their luck and ended up fleeing out of fear. Later, both squad members looked at Shepard and simultaneously said, "Where did you get this guy?" Because neither of them had seen Naruto's abilities so far, except for Zaid, but that was not as shocking as this. Shepard sighed and put her shotgun on her hip. "I'll tell you later." She waited for Naruto to reappear, ignoring the unsatisfied stares of Zaid and Kasumi. They still were curious, after all. After a few seconds, the three of them saw Naruto with Kurama on his head, floating back to the level where they were. That apparently surprised Shepard's squad mates, but they said nothing, as they would wait for the commander's explanation. They saw him smiling and heard him saying as he showed Shepard's M4 shuriken, "Look, I didn't lose your weapon." Shepard didn't smile and asked, almost with a sigh, "Why did you do that, Naruto?" Growling, Naruto replied as he got completely out from the opening. "That damned mech annoyed me, you don't know how much! Arg! Just as I was to do what you told me, it made me throw the gun. So I couldn't help but be pissed off." Naruto replied, landing in front of them with his arms crossed and a pout on his face. Shepard shook her head again and replied, "Well, try not to do anything like that again. Remember that you're in a spaceship, and if you end up destroying it, that wouldn't be good for the three of us," she said, pointing to herself and those who were beside her. Naruto scratched his head but nodded. "Okay. I'll let you continue with the mission from here, as I'm not yet ready to use weapons in actual combat. So, would you sign the papers?" "Okay, do you have a pen?" she asked, but saw Naruto shaking his head. However, this was no problem, since Naruto just created it, which made Shepard shake her head but ended up receiving it. What the hell are you? Zaid asked, puzzled. When he first saw him using that barrier, he had not been surprised because he thought that it was some new technology. Nonetheless, he understood that he wasn't anyone ordinary by the look in his eyes. Only now, he knew why he had thought of that, but still, he couldn't help being surprised. Huh! I had already told that I could do all this, Zaid. Did you forget that already? He asked, surprised due to his question. They had spoken a few times after Shepard recruited him, after all. Zaid shrugged and replied, I thought they were pure bullshit. Most people tend to do that when they meet other people, so I thought it was that. Even you? Naruto asked with a smile that also made Zaid smile. Sometimes. Hearing the pleasant conversation, Kasumi decided to speak. Well. Undoubtedly, you're someone talented. I can already see why the commander put her eye on you, she said with a chuckle as she realized that Shepard blushed slightly while signing Naruto's papers. After that, Kasumi continued. Hee, good. Hey, the boy of the whiskers, would you mind giving me a hand with something that I've planned? Shepard slightly raised an eyebrow just like Naruto, who asked. With what? Kasumi instantly turned her army tool on and showed some building blueprints of the citadel. There will be an art exhibition in the citadel in a few weeks, and I was wondering if you could help me keeping an eye on it. Kasumi, Shepard said, staring at her and handing the form over to Naruto, who kept it again. Hee, just kidding. I actually wanted to ask you something else. She paused for a moment, waiting for everyone to have her attention. Then she smiled and continued. I want you to be the commander's husband. At that, Naruto automatically choked on his saliva, which made him cough, while Shepard had an almost equal reaction. Zaid, meanwhile, watched the reaction of both of them with a smile and Kasumi as well. WL. Shepard stuttered due to Kasumi's words. Naruto also felt a little uncomfortable, but he managed to utter. F for what purpose? Kasumi covered her mouth to hide a giggle. She could not help having fun due to their reaction. Then she pulled it away and spoke more seriously. Don't be so serious. I don't want you to get married for real. It'll be part of a mission. You already heard it when we met in the Citadel for the first time. Some inconveniences appeared, and Shepard won't be able to go alone. Specifically, her husband will have to accompany her. Instantly, both of them released an ooh in understanding. Then Kasumi continued. So what do you think? At first, I had in mind to invite another person to go with Shepard. But after seeing you guys having such a nice date on the Citadel, I thought it would be better if Naruto were that person. Naruto then raised his hand, attracting Kasumi's attention. Well, if that's what you need, then I don't mind. I'll gladly help you. What do you say, Shepard? He asked, now looking at her. Well, I think it'd be interesting. I don't have any problems with it, she answered. Kasumi smiled and continued. Very well. I'll tell you when it will be so the three of us can go together. Both nodded, and Naruto continued. Very well. Then I'll leave. I'll let you continue with the mission. By the way, Shepard, I'm sorry for failing the training. I'll do better the next time. Oh, and your training will probably begin today, so I recommend you to prepare yourself physically and mentally for it. Now if you'll excuse me, I must go to deliver these documents to the bank. He bowed slightly at three and then disappeared in a yellow flash along with Kurama. Wow! Kasumi exclaimed, surprised to see him disappearing like that. Zaid was too, but he did not show it much. Shepard, on the other hand, took out her shotgun again and said, Let's go! Continuing with the mission. 15 minutes later, on the Normandy. Naruto had successfully opened and deposited the money into his bank account. He was happy because now he would be able to use his own money in this galaxy. Now all he needed was an Omni tool, but he thought that he would have to wait some time until the Normandy returned to the Citadel, or it went somewhere where they could buy them. Thereby, he had returned to the ship's hangar with his Haration, and Edi instantly noticed his arrival. So without wasting any time, she said, Naruto-san, the elusive man requests your presence in the communications room. What for? Naruto asked, looking at the ceiling of the ship with a raised eyebrow. It has to do with the blueprints that you requested and another issue that he did not inform me. Thank you, Edi, Naruto said, and, as strange as it seemed, he took the elevator to go to the deck 2 and subsequently to the communications room, but not before briefly speaking to Morden and asked him how his research to fight the paralyzing swarms of the collectors was. Morden had answered in his own way that he was still undergoing the investigations and that he needed some time to implement the countermeasures. Although he had said something about wanting Naruto's tissues to synthesize them, Naruto had nervously smiled at the implication and just said they would talk about that later. Naruto did not bother him more and went to the communications room. Once there, Naruto stood on the platform, and the orange dome surrounded him. His image was projected, and Naruto could see the elusive man, who, as always, was sitting in his chair and smoking a cigarette. Jack Harper, Edi has informed me that you wanted to talk to me concerning the Normandy's blueprints. But I have no desire to discuss your insecurities, so just hand them over and let's get this over with. Naruto spoke bluntly. The elusive man, not yet used to hearing his real name, could not help feeling uncomfortable. Even so, he gave a big drag on his cigarette and managed to focus on the reason for his call. There's no need to discuss, Naruto. I've already sent the blueprints to Edi. She has the authorization to give them to you or the commander. You would need an Omni-tool only to download the data. Naruto nodded and continued. I see. Do you need me for anything else? If not, then I'll withdraw. He turned around, prepared to leave. Nevertheless, the voice of the elusive man stopped him. There's something else, something important that needs your help. You're the only one I think who could do this. Naruto turned around, now intrigued by the words of the elusive man. And what would that be? He asked. The elusive man made a console appear in front of him, which had a lot of information and spoke as he read it. There is a problem in a human colony called Fel Prime. I have an undercover agent in that place. I suspect that they, the collectors, have indoctrinated him. In any case, he still responds to me, but his latest report has left me a bit worried. And what does the report say? Naruto asked. The elusive man took a drag from his cigarette and answered, releasing the smoke. He's sending signals and vital information about the colony to the collectors. With what purpose? It seems that he's trying to obtain information on the collectors by himself. Although I think it's incredible, he told me he got some kind of deal with them in exchange for the information that I mentioned. The elusive man replied. Naruto instantly brought his fingers to his chin, thinking about this. Then he took them off and looked at the elusive man. Why do you ask me to do this? Why don't you ask Shepard? And more importantly, what do you care what might happen to this colony? I'm sure that you care more about the information that the humans from that place have. The elusive man nodded, which did not surprise Naruto. You're correct. However, the fact that I have the suspicion that my agent has been indoctrinated makes me doubt the veracity of the information that he tries or might try to convey. Therefore, I don't have the intention of sacrificing a human colony for any information that might be wrong, even more if I can help it. He made a short pause, as he saw that Naruto just continued watching him. And it's within my power to ask for the favor of stopping the collectors from destroying that colony and abducting all the humans in their path. Moreover, I can only ask this of you. I'm sure that a collector ship and its swarms wouldn't be a problem for you. Also, a ship like the Normandy would call unnecessary attention and could jeopardize the entire crew. Naruto nodded and replied. You're right, destroying a collector's ship wouldn't be difficult. However, he made a short pause, seeing that the elusive man raised an eyebrow. I won't do it, it's not my problem. That statement surprised the elusive man, but before he could say anything, they both heard that the room door opened. What isn't your problem? Shepard asked to enter the room, surprised that these two were talking after the scene that involved them. Naruto turned around but said nothing. The elusive man spoke. You come at an opportune time, Commander. I was talking to our esteemed demigod on an issue that affects the human colony in the Terminus systems. What's the problem? Shepard asked, and the elusive man instantly told her everything that he had told Naruto. Upon completion of the story, Shepard looked at the ceiling and said, Joker, set course to Fel Prime. We'll go there immediately. Understood, Commander. They heard Joker's voice. Nonetheless, before Naruto could say anything, the elusive man spoke. Sorry, Shepard. But you must withdraw that order. Forget it, we'll help that colony. I don't care what you say, Shepard said. This time, the elusive man got up from his seat and moved closer to the projector. You're being stubborn, Shepard. You can't go there. Remember that you still don't have the countermeasure to avoid the collector's swarms in case they arrive. In addition, you can't get near to the colony with a Cerberus ship. There's Alliance presence, and we both know very well that Cerberus and the Alliance have their differences. Shepard growled, not liking what he was saying. He had a point, but that only made her angrier. Naruto, realizing this, put a hand on her shoulder to try to reassure her. Despite that, she pushed it to one side and replied to the elusive man. Well, then I'll send them a message warning them about it. I'm afraid that you can't do that either, Shepard. A message sent by Cerberus? Do you think that will take your warning seriously? There's also the risk that the collectors intercept the message, the elusive man replied. Shepard crossed her arms and said, So what do you suggest? That we let the whole colony be abducted and that we stay here with folded arms while that happens? The elusive man quickly shook his head. No, I've already suggested a solution. Now you must convince the only one man who can do something about it, to take the right decision, he said, looking at Naruto, who could not help sighing, even more so when he realized that Shepard turned around to face him. Naruto, Shepard said. Come on, Shepard. I've said that it's not my problem. I can't interfere in such things this lightly, Naruto said, but he started regretting it when he saw the expression on Shepard's face. She was frowning and was giving a penetrating gaze as if she were defying him with her eyes. He could not deny that her expression surprised him and pleased him at the same time. That was the expression he had seen when, with all her might, she managed to resist his influence. Furthermore, that expression had been the one that persuaded him to help her in the fight against the Reapers. Thus, Naruto smiled to himself. Cut the crap, Naruto. You have the power to do something for real, to make a real change, and yet you refuse? Do you even have a logical reason to do so? She asked, bringing her face closer to Naruto's, raising her head to look into his eyes. Naruto also looked back, realizing that Shepard somehow increased the intensity on her face. Kurama, who had already returned inside of Naruto, smiled and said, This human won't give up, you should say something. Naruto sighed and slightly stepped away from Shepard. Okay, I'll do it. Shepard smiled, and the elusive man sat back in his place. It's good to see you've come around. He tried to continue, but Naruto's voice stopped him. However, this will be the last time I'll be involved in something like this, Naruto added. Why? I thought that you wanted to help people, Shepard asked with a raised eyebrow, puzzled by Naruto's behavior. Naruto looked at her and replied with a straight face. Shepard, tell me, who do you think I really am? For some reason, Shepard felt cornered by the question, even more so due to the expression on Naruto's face. It reminded her of the expression when they had first met. It was not an aggressive one, but it made her nervous, as that face showed the amount of experience that he had over her. I don't know, Shepard replied. Naruto then softened his expression, which made Shepard mentally sigh. Shepard, I'm the person who makes the Reapers feel the terror. They fear me, they're terrified of my presence. They, the Reapers, the machines that want to preserve all traces of intelligent organic life in the universe, feel the fear of an organic being. They fear you? The elusive man asked with interest to hear such a claim. It was one of his doubts regarding them, after all. Naruto turned his head to look at him. Yes, but they first saw me as someone who stood in their objectives. But that changed after I revived. He realized that Shepard was about to ask why, but Naruto answered before she could speak. The elusive man, on the other hand, was quite shocked after hearing him saying that he revived. Shortly after I finished off with the Reapers and returned to live, thousands of Reapers headed to my planet to do a revision in search for the artifact that they needed. I didn't know that. I had just left my planet because I was furious since I didn't destroy them as I had believed it. He paused for a moment, and they could see him clenching his fists. Shepard looked at him somewhat sadly, whereas the elusive man, with interest. Naruto shook his head to avoid being carried away by the anger, and continued. I ventured into the dark space as I could feel that they were coming to my galaxy through that place. And when I found them... He paused again, and this time, they saw him raising his right fist and gritting his teeth tightly as he spoke. I destroyed them, I tore them apart. I toyed with them. I made them feel the terror in its purest form. I took the trouble so that they could feel what I wanted them to feel. This time, he could not contain himself, remembering those days were still somewhat sensitive for him. Although he had told Shepard that he could easily control his anger, there were times when even he came to lose his temper. Shepard, upon seeing him like this, could not help being worried. Not because she had feelings for him, but because she was not sure what could happen if Naruto were to lose control. In addition, he was releasing a bit of his killing intent. Even though Shepard did not know what it was, she recognized the feeling due to her first experience with the Shinigami. Thereby, she stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. Naruto! She whispered, and Naruto instantly noticed his loss of composure. The elusive man spoke as Naruto breathed slowly. And how did you accomplish something like that? Naruto gently placed his hand on Shepard's and pulled it away in the same way. Turning his head slightly, he gave her a small smile and thanked her. Shepard nodded and stepped back while Naruto gave one to the front and looked back at the elusive man. That's something you don't need to know right now, Jack Harper. Maybe someday I'll tell you, but for now I won't. Very well, but I hope that you can continue with the story you were telling moments ago. The elusive man politely answered. After all, the only thing that interested him now was to stay alive to fulfill the mission to destroy the Reapers. Although he had already selected the best researchers from his organization to investigate whatever it was inside him, as well as a possible cure for it, he didn't want to follow Naruto's orders forever as a lapdog. Naruto nodded and continued where he left off. Amid the confusion of what they so suddenly began to feel, they tried to attack me, but it was useless due to my immortality. Therefore, they had no choice but to flee in terror. I destroyed some of them, and I allowed the others to escape. It was there when I made a big mistake. They saw him shaking his head before continuing. I made sure that the surviving Reapers become carriers of what made them feel fear. The elusive man and Shepard gasped, then Shepard spoke while stepping forward. Carriers? Naruto nodded and continued. Something like that, like a virus or a time bomb, which would be released and would infect the other Reapers once the carriers arrived where the others were. Does that mean that you could have used a method to kill them rather than creating feelings for them? The elusive man asked. It was something that Shepard almost asked too. Naruto shook his head. No, it wouldn't have worked. Something like that would have been aggressive, and the Reapers would have quickly noticed it, which would have made that only a few of them perish. Instead, what I did was slow and silent. They didn't even notice the upgrade that I implanted in them because they weren't in a situation that would have made them feel fear. With a short pause so that they could assimilate his words, continued. And that was due to my stupidity and state of fury. It was stupid on my part, but at that time, I just wanted to take the sense of frustration off my chest. If my head had been cool back then, I wouldn't have done something like that. He paused again, seeing nods from both of them. The elusive man was the one who paid more attention since he ignored much of what he said. Then Naruto continued. After that, they again tried to attack me. That's when they noticed their upgrades and, thereby, I could destroy them more easily. The fear they began to feel was what led them to build a mass relay in my system. I thought they did it to reach my world more quickly, but they wanted to destroy it to destroy my solar system. But at the time they finished building and destroying the relay, I had already placed around my planet the barrier that you are already aware of. After that, they never bothered again, and I began to send signals to other species, like yours, to come to my world so I could help them. How many years do you estimate these events lasted? The elusive man asked. A few centuries, Naruto replied. The elusive man nodded, now curious to know more about this enigmatic person. However, Shepard spoke again. So are you worried that they may know of your presence and decide to be more cautious? This time, Naruto nodded and replied. Something like that. I don't want the Reapers to know about my presence yet, as this could cause problems like the one you quoted. But there are others among them, and the one that worries me more, it's that they decide not to attack and only use their ability to indoctrinate, making you kill each other. In addition, in case you haven't noticed it yet, the collectors are mere pawns of the Reapers. I'm absolutely sure that if they see me and recognize me, they will inform them on this, which could lead to the scenario that I mentioned. Only now, they could understand Naruto's reasons for not wanting to help the colony. But don't worry, I'll go there. I'll make sure they don't know I was there. Besides, I could be wrong, and this could be just a theory. It could be that the Reapers have already taken care of this problem a while ago, or maybe they didn't. Although, as I said, this will be the last time. He ended with a serious expression. Very well, it's decided, said the elusive man, who then heard Naruto speak. I need a current image of the planet, an area not too far away or too close from the human colony. The elusive man instantly turned his console on and searched the image that Naruto asked for in his database. Naruto carefully watched it and nodded. Thanks, I'll get ready. Do you need anything else? Naruto asked. The elusive man shook his head. Right now, nothing else. If I need something, I will let you know. Then the transmission ended. Meanwhile, Shepard and Naruto looked at each other before walking toward the exit. When the door opened, both could see Miranda and the recruit, Jack, who was leaning against the wall with a look of boredom. When she saw them, she let out a sigh of annoyance and moved away from the wall. At last, damn it! Did you finish talking to your boss? She asked, looking at Shepard, who sighed. Then Shepard looked at Miranda and said, Just give her the access she needs, referring to the Cerberus database that Jack had requested to access before leaving Purgatory. Hearing that, Jack chuckled and looked at Miranda. Heard that, Precious? We're going to be friends. You, me, and every embarrassing little secret. She said it with extreme sweetness and sarcasm. Then she continued. I'll be reading down in the hold or somewhere near the bottom. I don't like a lot of traffic. Keep your people off me, it's better that way. Then she turned around to retire but realized that Naruto was looking at her intently. And what are you looking at, Capman? Jack asked angrily, calling him that due to his whisker marks. Naruto almost fell backward, and could not utter a single word because the mere mention of that astonished him. Jack, meanwhile, snorted at Naruto before going to the engineering deck's basement. Naruto sighed and smiled slightly, realizing that both Miranda and Shepard laughed subtly. She will be a tough nut to crack, huh? Naruto said with a chuckle, which caused an equal laughter by the women before him. Subsequently, Naruto apologized and turned around to leave, but before he did it, Miranda stopped him, gently touching his arm. Naruto, she said, and Naruto turned around. Yeah? What's going on? Naruto asked. Well, I want to talk to you alone when you can. It's about the talk we had the other day, she answered, a bit nervous and subtly glancing at Shepard. Shepard raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Naruto nodded and replied. It'll be a pleasure. I'll personally go once I finish the mission that your boss just assigned me. What mission? Miranda asked with interest. I'll tell you once I return, but I may send a clone. Still, just wait for my return so we can properly talk. Both saw that Miranda nodded and said goodbye. As he walked to the exit door, Naruto bent his head down and looked down as he laid his fingers on his chin. Look at that ass, he thought as he nodded and watched Miranda wiggling her hips while walking. And maybe you'll obtain something from that talk, Kurama added with a smile. Naruto raised an eyebrow and replied. Oh? And I thought you supported the idea of me having a relationship with the commander. Kurama shrugged and replied. Hey, don't misunderstand me. You know I don't care whom you have sex with. What interests me is that you are happy, and from what I have seen so far, the blonde human woman is the only one who can offer that. Naruto rolled his eyes but asked something else to change the subject. Oh, now that I remember. What's your opinion regarding the humans in this galaxy? Do you hate them as well as the humans of our world? Kurama growled and answered. Humans, Turians, Solarians, and so on. They're all the same, They only desire power. I'm sure that if they could put me on a leash, they would. I see nothing different from the species from this place. They're as despicable as the humans that kept me prisoner my entire life. Interesting. I can see that you're still a racist, xenophobic even, Naruto seriously said, but smiling to himself. Hey! I have many friends who are not of my nature, Kurama replied, not agreeing with the words of his container. Oh yeah? Well, who? Naruto asked, moving his eyebrows. Well, you. One is more than enough. Damn humans! He softly said the latter, but Naruto could hear him and could not help laughing. The talk was in Naruto's mental landscape. Therefore, the time had run slower outside than inside, so Shepard didn't notice anything strange. She could see him nodding only while looking at Miranda's ass, which made her sigh. Then the door closed, and Miranda was gone, so Naruto lifted his head and walked toward the exit. I'll go to prepare myself in the hangar, Shepard, Naruto said, and left the room as well as Shepard, who said she would accompany him. When passing through the command post, Kelly had told Shepard that she had new messages at her private terminal, but she had decided to read them later. They took the elevator, and when they entered, and it had closed, Shepard spoke. Are you angry? She asked, turning her head toward him. Naruto did the same, somewhat puzzled by the question. No, why? Well, I thought you'd be angry because you were forced to go to a mission that you didn't want to go. You were right, we didn't know your reasons, and yet we forced you to do something you didn't want to do. Now I understand why you wanted me to train you. Besides, there was that moment. She referred to the moment when Naruto had brought out some of his anger. Naruto shook his head and replied. About that. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been carried away by the memories. Shepard was to say to that it was not important, but Naruto continued before Shepard could speak. But don't worry. The bad memories caused that moment of breakdown, not you. So no, I'm not angry. Just a little worried because things could go wrong. Though I have enough experience to keep that from happening. I will enter as a ghost and will go out in the same way. When Shepard heard the latter, she turned her head and asked out of curiosity. Wait. Literally or figuratively? Which do you prefer? Naruto asked with a smile that rubbed off on Shepard. Hey, you and your crazy claims. After she had said that, the elevator door opened, and they went into the hangar. As they did, Naruto said, By the way. He stopped and put his hand inside the robe he always wore on board the Normandy. Shepard also stopped and saw Naruto taking out the weights that he had shown her before. Time to start your training, Shepard. I want you to put these weights on now. Shepard, who had already taken off her armor before going into the communications room, nodded and grabbed the weights, realizing they were quite light. She said nothing about it and put one in each leg and the rest on each wrist. Then she looked at Naruto and asked, Now what? Naruto smiled and wordlessly lifted the middle and index finger of his right hand. Instantly, some seals in the weights appeared and glowed. Shepard groaned because they rapidly increased in weight. She tried to stay on her feet, but could not do so because they reached a weight that she could no longer stand. She fell forward but had the misfortune that her right wrist fell on her left forearm. Therefore, she growled and exclaimed, Arg! Due to pain. In addition, she could easily hear that her bone cracked, indicating that her arm broke. Naruto did nothing, just stared at Shepard trying to take her heavy wrist off her sore forearm. Damn! Shepard thought, gritting her teeth and making an extraordinary effort to move her wrist. This is impossible. Shepard thought again, this time starting to become frustrated because she could do nothing. Therefore, she tried to surround herself with her cloak in an attempt to lighten the load, but Naruto raised his fingers again, thereby increasing the burden of the weights and making Shepard lose her concentration, and this time, she cried out in pain. Ah! She could not contain it, nor a small tear that escaped from her right eye. As she could, she looked up, realizing that Naruto had raised his fingers. Then she saw that he brought them down, and the weights returned to their previous weight. I get it. He wants me to do this with my own strength, Shepard thought, now knowing why Naruto did that. But I must hurry up or I'll lose my arm. She thought the latter with some trepidation, but then changed her expression to one of determination. She crumpled her face, gritted her teeth, and growled while doing a superhuman strength to take her wrist off her forearm. Nevertheless, this time, instead of trying to lift it, she began to draw it back very slowly. Naruto mentally smiled at this, just like Kurama. After a few seconds, that seemed like hours for Shepherd, she managed to pull her wrist off her forearm, and instantly after doing so, she placed her head on the floor and released a sigh with relief. Although she could not help growling in pain as she felt the pulsation of her broken forearm. Then she felt the weights return to normal, but still she had no desire to lift her head, as she felt utterly exhausted. She could articulate the following words only. "Take me to the infirmary." Naruto, meanwhile, smiled, squatted in front of her, and said as he brought both hands to Shepherd's arm. "Congratulations, Shepherd. You've completed the first phase of your training exceptionally well. I didn't think that you were going to do it so quickly, but I knew if I press you, you would give me a surprise." Shepherd at that moment felt that Naruto touched her arm and began to lift it very gently. She moaned in pain and turned her head to see what Naruto was trying to do. She saw that he was doing the same thing he did to Geras after the Blue Suns attacked him on Omega. "You know, Shepherd, I also had to go through similar things when I was a child. The downside was that I had to put up with it until I could heal myself. But you don't have to worry about that, I'll do that for you." After saying that, Naruto's hands glowed and Shepherd instantly felt a relaxing chill. What is this? Shepherd thought, shocked because of the sense of calm and relaxation that had invaded her as Naruto continued using his healing ability. After a while, Naruto pulled his hand away and Shepherd released a sigh of relief. Then she looked at her arm and realized that there was not even a single mark, and that was not all. She did not feel tired at all. "What did you do?" she asked, interested to learn more about Naruto's abilities. Naruto scratched his head while answering. "Well, I had already told you on that occasion when I did the same to Geras. I conveyed to you my energy and your wounds healed with it." "That's chakra, right?" she asked as she watched Naruto pulling a scroll out of his robe. "Vital energy," Naruto corrected while opening the scroll. Shepherd raised an eyebrow and asked, "Vital energy? That sounds dangerous." She saw Naruto nodding as he released clothes from the scroll, which did not surprise her at all. Only the clothes that came out from there caught her eye. It was a black hooded robe and a mask that looked like some kind of demon. "Yes, it's dangerous. But as you know, I'm immortal, and I have no problem to squander my vital energy. Well, except for the technique that you've heard the Shinigami say before we left his kingdom." "Why?" she asked with interest. Naruto left his garments on the floor and looked with some seriousness to Shepherd. "For starters, I can quickly regenerate my vital energy. That's why I'm not worried to use such techniques lightly. But the other one that the Shinigami mentioned is different because I have to summon the King of Hell and give it almost all of my vital energy to revive one or several people. The amount doesn't matter, the King of Hell, Gedo, doesn't discriminate. It only takes as much energy as possible from you to revive the people you want. Then, before it leaves, it drags you along with it to the place where it came from. And since I wouldn't have enough energy, then I wouldn't be able to fight back." Shepherd had opened her mouth in shock after hearing Naruto saying that he could revive people, but after understanding the risks of this ability, she could only ask, "How do you know this? Did you try to revive someone already?" She saw Naruto shaking his head. "No, I never did because it would have been in vain in those days. I always knew that using that technique entailed to the user's death, but I never knew why. That was until the first meeting I had with the Shinigami and his warnings about never using that technique." Shepherd nodded. It was an impressive skill, but very dangerous at the same time. She could not imagine anyone reviving other people. Although after thinking for a moment, she could not help laughing slightly because the elusive man had done that to her. She left that aside and decided to ask something else. "So, how many kilograms did the weights have?" she asked as she recalled the moment she fell. He saw Naruto chuckling and answering, "Around 400 kilograms each. And when you tried to surround yourself with your biotic cloak, I increased them to 1.5 tons. Then he laughed due to the disbelief expression on Shepherd's face. "You're crazy!" Shepard exclaimed, now understanding why it had been almost impossible for her to move her wrist. Naruto stopped laughing and refuted. I may be. However, I'm warning you now, that was nothing. Your training will increase in intensity for each phase that you surpass. I must strengthen your body so you can be able to withstand the speed that I want you to reach. It will be difficult, but not impossible. Much will depend on your willpower. Oh, and one tip, don't hold back if you feel that you're going to cry. If you feel the need to do it, because I promise you that you won't be able to hold it back in most cases, and it would be useless to try to do it in the easier training. You have to get used to it not to feel embarrassed when you do it later. Is he serious? She thought as she swallowed some saliva. Shepard was only now feeling intimidated by the kind of training that she would receive, and this made her wonder if she made the right choice of asking Naruto to train her. She shook the idea away, and in doing so, she saw Naruto doing some hand seals while saying, Now we'll start with the phase 1.5 of your training. After this, Naruto finished the hand seals and placed his right hand on the floor. Kuchios no Jutsu, summoning jutsu. Instantly, a small white cloud appeared which revealed the hen, but she had the purple eyes that Naruto had on purgatory. She raised an eyebrow and asked while pointing at the chicken that had begun to cluck. 1.5? Naruto smiled and answered. You must catch her. He paused and saw that Shepard smiled as if she were trying to say that it would be easy, but Naruto continued before she could speak. But it won't be easy at all. You have to carry some weight. Upon saying that, Naruto loaded around 20 kilograms on each weight. Shepard instantly felt heavier, but not as minutes ago. She could handle it, she thought. Although, Shepard concluded it would be harder to catch her. However, she thought of using her biotic charge to catch the fast hen. Naruto saw Shepard getting ready, and since he sensed that she had in mind to use her biotic powers, he said, Go ahead, try to catch her, while pointing his hand to the hen that had now begun to peck the floor. Nevertheless, she lifted her head and quickly moved to the sides because Shepard had moved. The hen's behavior didn't surprise Shepard. She just stepped back and surrounded herself with her biotic cloak to use her charge. Naruto then saw Shepard moving in slow motion towards the chicken, watching the blue trail that she left behind by every millimeter that she advanced. When he saw her a few centimeters away from the hen had plunged into the floor and appeared right behind Shepard, who stopped her attack, thinking that she had touched her at least. But after looking at Naruto, she saw that he was pointing behind her. So she looked down and saw that the chicken was now there, pecking at the floor again, looking for something to eat. What happened? Shepard asked, not knowing how she had placed herself behind her so quickly. Naruto smiled and quickly answered. I told you, it won't be easy. It will be much harder to catch her if you use your biotic powers. I exclusively designed her with a self-defense system that reacts to any hostile element that doesn't have the seals that contain the weights on your limbs. And since you become intangible when you use your biotic charge, the seals disable automatically. In other words, you can only catch her by using your arms and legs. For example, try to throw her some of your other attacks. Shepard nodded, stepped back and threw some of her attacks, realizing that the hen simply disappeared or faded into the air or plunged into the floor. Damn! Shepard said with sweat dripping from her forehead, now understanding that the phase 1.5 would not be as easy as she had thought at the beginning. Then she looked at Naruto, who continued. From now on, the hen will follow you wherever you go. She won't give you intimacy problems, but she will be with you in your missions and tours in places like the Citadel. After that, Naruto began taking the robe he wore off. Shepard said nothing about this, but she did look out of the corner of her eye as he took his clothes off, to put those he had left on the floor on. I see, Shepard said. Then she shook her head and asked, Why a hen? She heard Naruto laughing while putting the black robe on. Well, the hens are small, but fast. Also, they're always attentive to everything. So they're perfect for this training. I could have used less conventional things, but this is familiar to almost everyone. Shepard nodded and watched Naruto almost dressed, just the mask was missing. And that uniform? It's rare to see you getting dressed like an ordinary person and not creating clothes around you. Heh. Naruto laughed due to the implication. Then he answered as he put his mask on and took his ninjato to put it on his back. It's the uniform of the organization where I was when I was a kid. I remained as a member during my adolescence, but almost no one knew. But when I definitely left, I decided to keep these garments to remember. Do you remember that I told you that I would enter as a ghost in that colony? He saw Shepard nodding before continuing. I did that when I was in that organization. I was like a ghost. No one noticed my presence, and when the time came, bam! He exclaimed, slamming his right fist into his left palm. The sound surprised Shepard a bit, but Naruto continued without stopping. Then I left in the same way from my missions, like a ghost. Well, not only me but almost everybody in the organization. Shepard nodded again and heard Naruto ask, "And what will you do now?" Shepard thought for a moment and replied, "The elusive man's dossiers mentioned a Krogan called Ochre. I'll talk to him and see if he can help us in this mission. I hope everything goes well. You've already seen how the Krogans can be by mere nonsense." Naruto smiled behind his mask, recalling his encounter with the Krogan former member of the Blood Pack. Then he said, "Well, I have to go now, Shepard. I must go to see what's going on in that colony." Shepard nodded, but before he could retire, she said one last thing. "Naruto, wait! I have a question for you." Naruto instantly stopped and told her to ask. Shepard nodded and continued. "How did you give feelings to the Reapers?" "Well, the feeling of fear." Naruto said, stopping and raising his mask to reveal his face. Shepard looked into his eyes as he spoke. "It's the same principle of the creation of the bird, Shepard. I have a skill called Banbutsu Sozo. In your language, it means creation of all things. It's that, basically. I can create anything based on my imagination, as I told you before. And at that moment, I thought of giving them that feeling." Shepard was surprised again. "Wow, I never thought that skill could be used in something like that." Naruto lowered his mask and continued. "Yes, it could even give life to this ship. Own consciousness, thoughts, a soul. But I don't like playing God. I don't like that title, as I had already told you." "Could you really do that?" "Ha ha ha, Joker would love it," she said as she pictured Joker and the ship going out on a date. "Aim, I can hear you, you know. And just so you know, I don't need my baby to have a life. I'll still love her. Although it wouldn't be bad if you did that." Joker spoke through the intercom, somewhat excited in the end by the idea of having a real conversation with the ship and not just with a dumb AI. Naruto laughed along with Shepard after hearing him speaking. Although it would be easier to give Edi a body. Maybe in that way both of them will begin to get along better. Naruto joked, but just then, they heard Edi's voice. "Would you really be able to provide me with a body, Naruto-san? I could provide limited fire ground support if such is the case. Besides, I could accompany the commander to areas the Normandy cannot reach." She was not excited or anything, she was just saying her perspective. "Yeah, just so that the elusive man controls you to sabotage us once we're no longer useful to him," Joker replied. Shepard thought the same, as she still did not trust Edi due to all the blocks she had. "That would be counterproductive, Jeff Moro. The elusive man would not do something like that with Naruto-san still around," Edi refuted. They heard Joker laughing and saying, "So he would if he weren't, huh? Well, too bad, because that won't happen. How does it feel to be on the losing side?" he asked as he laughed again. It seemed that Edi intended to add something else, but Naruto decided to interrupt the conversation. Sorry, Edi. It was a joke, hee. He replied with a nervous smile as he waved his hand toward the ceiling. It was a lie, but he also thought the same. He did not want to give Edi a body so that the elusive man ended up controlling it from his burrow, as Joker said. That man was someone brilliant, and even if he had marked him, he still couldn't be sure if that would be enough to stop him in making his moves in the future. Edi could not detect lies in his words since Naruto had the mask on. Therefore, she did not speak again but continued the debate with Joker, who turned the intercom off. When he heard nothing more from Edi, he stopped shaking hands and looked at Shepard. "Well, I think that would be all. I'll investigate what's happening in that colony. Once I'm there and have a defined scenario, I'll send a clone to inform you of the situation. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must withdraw," Naruto said, but stopped, adding something else. "Oh, I almost forgot. Remember that you now have the weights. You can take them off whenever you want, but I recommend you not to do it, not even when you sleep. You will progress faster this way. By the way, I'll give you more instructions once I send my clone. And please be respectful to her," he said, subtly looking at the hen. Shepherd raised an eyebrow at Naruto's request, but she nodded and said, "Okay, I will. See you around." Naruto nodded and used his kamui to arrive in an instant to the place the elusive man had shown him. Once the hangar was empty, she looked at the floor and saw that the hen was still walking around in search for something to eat. Shepherd stared at her, cracked several bones of her body, and made a few warm-up jumps. "Here we go." She looked at the hen one last time and ran toward her. Obviously, her speed was not the desired one, due to the 20 extra kilograms that she carried at each extremity, making it impossible for her to catch the fast hen that had run in the opposite direction. Shepherd did not give up, and in the next 15 minutes, she continued the race in an attempt to catch her. Nevertheless, all her efforts were in vain, and when she felt that her breath had run out, she had stopped and had bent down as she placed both hands on her knees and began to breathe slowly to recover the lost breath. "Phew, this will be harder than I thought." Then she looked at the chicken, who seemed to be staring at her with scorn. Tilting her head toward her, she carefully looked at her between gasps, a bit puzzled by the expression on the hen's face. However, what happened next shocked her. Cluck cluck are you giving up already? I don't know why Naruto-sama requested the services of the great Midori-sama, Ms. Hen. Shepherd instantly stood up correctly and pointed to the chattering hen. "You talked, but I didn't understand what you said." This time, she took her fingers on her chin, trying to decipher what the hen had said, but it would have been meaningless. After all, she realized that the hen was speaking in Japanese and Shepherd did not see the need of configuring her Omni-tool to detect and translate that language automatically. After all, Naruto had begun to speak in English without any problems. The hen wildly cackled while waving her wings and said she could not accept such disrespect. Obviously, Shepherd didn't understand a thing, but then she saw that the chicken breathed slowly and now spoke in a language understandable to her. Cluck cluck I've had enough of your ignorance, human. From now on I warn you that catching me won't be easy, and you could even get hurt. Now get ready and move on." Shepherd sighed and answered, "It'll be another time. Now I must get ready for another mission, I'll try it there. Oh, and don't believe that I'm afraid of a silly hen like you." This time, the hen began to cluck with more forces, but this time with anger. In addition, she was running in circles, which only makes Shepherd believe she was indeed a silly hen. Nevertheless, the hen stopped and looked with a defiant expression to Shepherd before running towards her. Shepherd didn't even move, just smiled and chuckled. However, the smile faded from her face when she saw her disappearing from her sight and reappearing almost instantly a few millimeters away from her stomach. Shepherd could not even move a muscle, and the hen, when reaching her belly, she drove her back. Shepherd, when feeling the tremendous blow of the little animal, spat out a significant amount of saliva. The hen, meanwhile, continued pushing her back, until she hit hard against the wall, which made her fall in the same way to the floor. Shepherd, after feeling that the attack was over, she breathed to recover the air that the blow had extracted from her lungs while she coughed. The hen, seeing Shepherd's condition, walked up to her head and began pecking it. Cluck cluck for your insolence. Cluck cluck. Then she stopped the pecking, hearing Shepherd saying between coughs that she was sorry. The hen, satisfied with the apology, nodded and vanished from that place, waiting until Shepherd tried to catch her again. Damn cough, humiliated by a hen cough, Shepherd thought with embarrassment, as she rubbed her aching stomach. Although it was not a reason to be ashamed, Naruto created it, after all. After that, she slowly got up, hearing Idi's voice asking, "Do you require medical assistance, Commander? I can send Dr. Chukwas in that case." "And no, it's not necessary," she replied, getting to her feet and shaking the dust off her clothes, though groaning with some pain because the blow had left a bruise on her stomach. She sighed and went to rest in her cabin. The energies that Naruto had given her had vanished after the hen's blow. For this reason, she had decided to pause the mission to visit Oker, and do it when she felt better. Although before she went there, she first addressed the infirmary for a checkup, omitting that a hen had caused her injuries. Once treated, she left there and went straight up to her cabin to lie down in the bed and sleep. With Naruto, fell prime. It was already past midnight on the planet where Naruto had arrived with his Kemui. The place was an old pharmaceutical factory that was abandoned due to a certain attack that involved several members of the Blood Pack and the Alliance a few years ago, which forced the factory to settle down elsewhere. Once Naruto was there, he looked sideways and thought, "Well, I'm here." After that, he looked to the north, direction where he could feel the presence of living beings, mostly humans. "Then go there and investigate what's going on. You could use a henge to go unnoticed," Kurama advised. Good idea. But for now, I'll keep myself to the shadows. I must first observe the colonists, and then the man that is supposedly indoctrinated." After that, Naruto just disappeared from there. He arrived in an instant at the colony's location that now had a protective barrier that the Alliance had upgraded after the Blood Pack had tried to kill everybody in the colony. Naturally, Naruto had passed through the barriers smoothly and undetected. Consequently, after being inside, he had addressed to the tallest building in the place and waited for dawn, to observe the colonists, and start his mission. A few hours later, Normandy. A few hours have passed since the moment Naruto had left the Normandy to go to Fell Prime. It was like 4 in the morning, and Shepard was ignorant of it. She was in her bed, resting to replenish the energies that Midori-sama had taken away with that tremendous blow. She lay there, trying to ignore the discomfort of the training weights while slowly getting used to them and drifting off to sleep. However, to her chagrin, she had felt in dreams that someone was whispering her name as he touched her shoulder gently. With annoyance, she slowly opened her heavy and tired eyes. "Shepard! Hey, wake up, Shepard! It's time for your training." She instantly recognized Naruto's voice, but she didn't want to pay him attention, and with a sound of annoyance, she turned and completely covered herself with her blanket. "Leave me alone, I'm still sleepy." She spoke and closed her eyes. However, she felt a strong pull that took her blanket away and immediately felt a great stream of nearly freezing water falling on her. Yelling due to the cold, Shepard got up from her bed, watching Naruto with one of those strange hand poses and smiling slightly at her. "Why, you're crazy!" Shepard exclaimed, stammering due to the cold. Naruto smiled, but then his expression changed to a more serious one and shouted, "Silence! I want 500 push-ups right now!" Shepard blinked a few times, thinking he was crazy. "You must be kidding, that amount!" But she couldn't finish as she felt that her body weight increased considerably, which made her fall to the floor. "I didn't give you permission to speak, Genin! I want my 500 push-ups now!" he exclaimed again with that expression that seemed straight out of a military movie. Naruto, meanwhile, was smiling amusingly inside. Shepard groaned for several reasons. First, due to the way he had woke her up, and secondly due to how bossy Naruto sounded, that reminded her of some of her instructors from N school, and thirdly due to her current weight, though it wasn't even close to what it had been hours earlier. Thus, very slowly she folded her arms, stretched her legs out and placed both wet palms on the floor. Very heavily and slowly, she stretched her folded arms, taking her up to the required height. "Oh, one," she said before falling due to her own weight. Sighing wearily, she prepared herself to do the next one. But much to her dismay, Naruto stood in front of her to exclaim again. "You call that a push-up? Even an armless child could do it better!" "A child like you, surely?" she declared, disagreeing with the words of Naruto, who, for his part, felt cornered. Well, you do have a point there. I knew it. No one can make that amount of push-ups in a row," she added, now enjoying the comfort that the floor gave her. She closed her eyes slightly, ready to recover more energy, but she quickly sank back into her dreams. However, before she could do it completely, Naruto's voice stopped her. "The amount isn't impossible, but I think I went a bit too far with the weight of your wrist guards. No. Open your eyes and give me those 500 push-ups. This time he had yelled almost in her ear, and Shepard, unable to hide her surprise, began to make quick push-ups due to inertia. Naruto nodded in satisfaction and waited until the moment Shepard reached her limit to give her another nice surprise. 3 hours later in the dining room. Tired, shattered, completely mangled. Those were some of the few sensations that Shepard could describe after the intense training that Naruto's clone had given her. As the clone had guessed, Shepard had failed to reach the 500 push-ups. Therefore, he had told her to do 500 sit-ups, which she had also failed. This routine continued for hours, and in each of them, Shepard was taken to her limit. But to no avail, since there was no way that she could accomplish those exercises with her current capacity, and Naruto knew that very well, but he was confident that it wouldn't take long before she met his expectations. As for the clone, the original had sent him while he continued his affairs in Fel Prime, which would take some time since he didn't want to draw the attention of the colonists, much less the collectors and therefore the reapers. Regardless, when the clone had concluded that Shepard had had enough, he had offered to get her breakfast. She accepted without thinking because she felt hungry after the arduous training, although she had almost told Naruto to pick her up. However, Naruto, knowing the state in which she would be, saved her the shame and did it without her asking it. Shepard didn't deny the aid help leaned on the back of Naruto when he knelt so that she could get up. Upon reaching the third deck, Naruto sat Shepard at the head of the table, before leaving to fetch her meal. Behind him, Shepard slumped to the table as she tried to regain some energy. For this, the clone approached Gardner, the only person in the room because he was preparing breakfast for the arrival of the crew. Their expressions changed as their eyes met, either wanting to be the first to break their gaze. Meanwhile, the first to approach the dining room was Geras, who sighed because he sensed that both would fight over food again. He decided to ignore them and walk to the table. There he could see a very unkempt Commander Shepard, who could hear a chair at her side moving and a person sitting in it. Suspecting it was Naruto, she made a sign as she raised her head and opened her mouth with closed eyes. "Food! Hungry!" she said, lacking the energy to open her eyes, much less eat on her own. Geras instantly chuckled, which made Shepard realize that she had guessed wrong. Therefore, blushing slightly because of it, she opened her eyes and spoke. "Geras, I thought you were Naruto." Geras laughed again and this time spoke. "Yes, I thought so. I don't think there's anyone else you would have the confidence to ask to feed you." Again, Shepard felt embarrassed due to Geras' deduction. He was a person who could read others very quickly, after all. However, she decided to add, "Don't get so sad, Geras. I would ask you too, of course, if I didn't have both arms." They both laughed, and then Geras asked out of curiosity, "And what did happen? You weren't like this yesterday, and you didn't do any mission if I recall correctly." Shepard felt nauseous as she remembered the reason for her fatigue, but she decided to answer with a single word. "Naruto." Then, Shepard released a moan because she felt a pulse running through her entire body. Geras, when hearing that and seeing her reaction, he couldn't avoid misinterpreting things and open his eyes a little bit. "Wow, I didn't think you guys would go that far. I guess, congratulations." Then he turned slightly and looked at Naruto, who had casually looked at them. Therefore, Geras gave him a thumbs up, which Naruto didn't understand why. However, he responded with a smile and a sign of victory. Shepard, at first, didn't understand what Geras was implying, but after raising her head and seeing the signs that both individuals were sending at each other, she quickly decided to correct Geras before a rumor could spread like a plague through the ship. "No! You've totally misunderstood it," she said, shaking her hands in front of Geras, who saw it from the corner of his eyes. He turned around and heard Shepard continuing. "We were training. Training." She syllabicated at the end, to avoid any more confusion. Geras then understood it but decided to keep bothering Shepard. "Some people call it differently, but if you want to call it training, who am I to say no?" Her palm landed on her forehead as she shook her head, but before she could say he was wrong again, another person had joined the dining room. "What's going on here?" They turned their heads, just to see Zaid taking a seat next to Geras, who without wasting time, whispered a few words in his ear. Shepard stared with narrowed eyes, seeing the first signs of the plague, threatening to infect the entire ship, and who knows? Even the whole galaxy, although this was somewhat exaggerated. Zaid, realizing the situation, decided to join Gurus. One never ran into good opportunities to annoy someone like Shepard, and he was bored and wanted to clear his mind a bit. That guy amazes me every day. And how was it, Shepard? Did he do it as a loving teenager or as a fully fledged mercenary? Oh my God! Shepard thought, starting to get a headache, even more after hearing someone exclaiming, Commander! Don't tell me you seriously took my suggestion to marry the guy with the whisker marks? Gurus and Zaid turned their heads, seeing Kasumi turning visible after saying those words. She had also heard what both had said, but like the others, she also wanted to join the game. Shepard, with much effort, got to her feet, and with the little strength she had left, she hit the table. Enough. Naruto and I didn't have sex. She ground out with a stern expression, which made the others mentally smile at seeing her losing patience so quickly. Why did you say that? They heard a familiar voice, so they turned and saw Naruto accompanied by some clones, an ability that no longer surprised those present, bringing breakfast to the table. The culprits instantly looked away, pretending not to understand. Shepard, seeing herself cornered, only leaned back, falling heavily on her seat. Enough, I don't want to talk about it, just bring the food, she ordered. The fatigue and the prank of her team had put her in a bad mood. Naruto and his clone shrugged and put the food on the table. Kasumi sat next to Zaid, just to receive a tray from one of the Naruto clones. Once everyone had their food, Naruto sat in front of the others, right next to Shepard. It caught their attention that he was the only one who didn't have anything to eat, which incommoded some of them. Not Zaid, who had no trouble asking. And why aren't you eating? He asked as he shoved some pancakes in his mouth. Naruto, who had been frowning for quite some time, replied, The cook has a problem with me. Food, Gurus added, eating his special food for Turians. The others didn't know the reason for the fight, but Gurus did because he was very close to the kitchen and sometimes he could hear both of them arguing. Exactly. And I don't understand why. He has never cooked anything I asked him. He finished, crossing his arms. Kasumi, lowering her glass of juice, added, I believe that the amount of bowls of ramen that you ate at the Citadel have something to do with it. He probably thinks that you'll end up eating all his reserves if he prepares something for you. Besides, I remember hearing from someone that you gave him an impressive amount of supplies to make food just for you. Naruto, after hearing those words, had a revelation. However, he dismissed it. No. I think he just doesn't like me, he replied, crossing his arms again. If I were you, I'd make him understand the difference between a real soldier and a simple cook, Zaid added, tucking another pancake into his mouth. Kasumi giggled and talked. If you were him, you would probably attempt to dominate the galaxy or something like that. Of course. Although I would primarily make Vito suffer in unimaginable ways, Zaid answered, without fear of saying what he would do with Naruto's powers. Zaid turned his head to Kasumi and continued, Though you wouldn't be any different. You would probably steal everything in your way. Kasumi giggled again. You flatter me, you seem to know me very well. What about you? What would you do? She asked, looking at Gurus, who instantly took his fingers on his chin. I don't know. I would probably try to help, something similar to what Naruto is doing, but on a smaller scale. I take care to do a thorough cleansing of the unwanted ones. Boring, Kasumi and Zaid simultaneously said. Not so much, it's a noble thing, Naruto added, joining the conversation, causing them to repeat themselves. Gurus didn't bother because he wasn't ashamed of saying it or having people know. It was his nature. By the way, what would you do, Shepard? Naruto asked, now looking at her. Shepard, who was chewing with a scowl, swallowed, turned her head and looked into his eyes. I'd give you a beating, then continued eating. Naruto nervously scratched his head, while the others smiled and Kasumi asked out of curiosity. Seriously, why are you so unkempt? We were just playing with you earlier, but what actually happened? Shepard felt nauseous again, but not enough to ruin her breakfast. Regardless, Naruto replied. Well, I made her do some workout routines. Around 500 repetitions of each of them, but since she couldn't complete them, I kept ordering her to do other routines. Then I forced her to run for over 6 hours straight. The three of them opened their eyes in shock, and only now they could understand why Shepard was in such a mood. That sounds intense, but I thought that your N7 tests lasted more than 20 hours straight. Are you out of shape, Shepard? Geras asked. Shepard sighed exasperatedly. Yeah, tried to do workouts with 30 kilos of weight on each limb, before running in the same way without stopping at a place where the temperature is above 40 degrees Celsius and where you seem to be at a height of 4,000 meters, so the air hardly gets to your lungs. Yes, Geras, I'm out of shape. She finished, tilting her head and staring at the vigilante with disbelief. Geras excused himself instinctively. I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to offend you. Shepard, noticing her behavior, sighed and apologized. No, I'm sorry. It's just that I'm too tired. I can barely keep my eyes open. I think we won't do anything today. Then she tried to get up with difficulty, but she couldn't due to the fatigue and because Naruto grabbed one of her hands. Wait, Shepard. Shepard saw Naruto's hand shining, feeling what she had felt the night before when Naruto healed her shattered wrist. She felt revitalized almost instantly, with enough energy to do anything. Naruto, realizing this, pulled his hand away and continued. The boss already told you yesterday, Shepard. You don't have to worry about wasting your energy when training. Shepard, clenching her fists and stretching her arms slightly, could swear she felt stronger right now. Surprisingly, it even repaired her muscles and gave them the rest they needed. Then she looked at Naruto and spoke. You could have done this from the beginning, she said smiling, for the simple reason that she just liked that feeling in her body after Naruto transferred his vital energy. It was so relaxing that she couldn't help it. The others watched with confusion, because until a few moments ago, Shepard seemed to have one foot in her grave. But now she looked like a child with enough energy to annoy her parents an entire day at the amusement park, although they assumed that the brightness of his hands had something to do with it. Naruto chuckled and replied. Well, I wanted your body to experience the feeling of working hard for a while. I'm not saying you haven't done it before, but I wanted you to have a slight idea of the shinobi training. I see. Well, I'm going to prepare myself. Zaid and Geras, get ready, we're going to talk to a Krogan. Perhaps your faces will scare him enough so that he doesn't try to be a problem. She joked at the end. Neither of them took it the wrong way, they only chuckled, but Kasumi said. If you want to intimidate him, why don't you take Naruto? I'm sure that one of his techniques would be more than enough to do it. Naruto turned his head toward Shepard, who spoke before he could say something about it. Because Naruto isn't imposing at first glance. Moreover, some people come to confuse him, she replied, referring to the times when people compared him to a kitten. Naruto released a sigh while the others smiled slightly. Zaid, however, added, You're right. That day when he said that it wasn't necessary to hurt the Batarian, I was about to punch him in the face. But when I looked at him, let's say that I concluded that it wouldn't be wise. A wise decision. They heard the voice of someone approaching from the infirmary. They looked there and saw the Dr. Chuck was wandering to take a seat next to Naruto, who greeted her with a smile, and she responded in the same way. The others also greeted her, and she continued. Well, I can see that you're about to leave. But never mind, I will share the table with the rest of the crew. They will arrive at any time. Shepard thanked her for understanding and rose from the table as the other two were going to the next mission. Regardless, Naruto, to not be rude, moved at high speed and brought 2 breakfast trays. He gave one to an impressed doctor, who swore that the tray had just appeared there, and the one remained in his hands. There's your breakfast, doctor. I hope you enjoy it. The clone spoke, bowing his head slightly. Kasumi, not understanding what had happened, asked. Wait, was that your ability to create things out of nothing? I heard something about it. Shepard thought it was, but Naruto contradicted. No, I just brought 2 trays from the counter. I suck at creating cooked food, for the simple reason that I have no knowledge of how to do it. I can't even cook with that ability. Maybe I should take some classes, he said, the latter reflecting to himself. I could teach you, Kasumi offered. I'm a good cook. Well, my mother instructed me very well in it to please my husband when I found one. Too bad, her daughter became a kleptomaniac, but the food is never a problem when I'm on my missions. Really? Will you show me? Naruto asked, appearing beside her, which again surprised those present. Why yes, but only if you and the commander manage to complete the favor I asked of you, she added, a little scared at first after seeing him appearing so suddenly. Naruto left the tray on the table, stood firmly and made the typical military salute. Yes, ma'am! Shepard smiled at Naruto's enthusiasm. It made her happy to see him that way. She wasn't bothered by Kasumi's offer because she didn't feel any malicious intentions from any of them. Besides, something made her think that Kasumi was in love with someone else. But hey, it was just a feeling. Naruto grabbed the tray again, and when he was about to say something else, he heard Gardner's voice exclaiming, Hey! You could, at least, ask for my permission before taking food from my station. He had finally realized. It was natural that he wouldn't because Naruto's speed and the distance between the dining table and his position. Then Naruto turned his head and crinkled his face. I just took 2 trays. And none of them are for me, so don't get angry. And sorry! I won't do it again. He spoke with annoyance at the end. That's better. I don't like when people touch my station materials without my permission, the cook added before proceeding to prepare breakfast for the rest of the crew. With a sigh, Naruto turned and heard Shepard asking, If it isn't for you, then for whom? For the woman you recruited yesterday. I'm going to introduce myself, he replied, and without waiting for an answer, he immersed himself in the floor towards the engineering basement. With eyes wide open, Kasumi spoke. What I wouldn't give for a skill like that. There wouldn't be any vault safe in the galaxy. I should ask him to be my partner once we finish this suicide mission. She thought aloud, and this last comment bothered Shepard a little bit. Well, it won't happen. Naruto will stay here, she added, unable to contain her opinion. Oh? Jealous, Commander? She asked with amusement. Shepard instantly turned around. Of course not, I'm just telling you what will happen. Naruto will stay here until we defeat the Reapers, he said it himself. I'm only telling you, so you don't get your hopes up, she stated and then walked to her cabin. That woman is indeed crazy over that man, Zaid affirmed, standing up from his seat before going to get ready in his room. You read my mind, Gurus added, doing the same. Kasumi did it too, saying goodbye to the doctor while the other crew members gathered at the table for breakfast. She had nothing to do but had a desire to find out more about the relationship between Naruto and the commander. But at the moment, she didn't feel like it. She would wait a little longer before analyzing them both. Perhaps the upcoming mission would be a perfect starting point. Now she simply had to wait for that day. Meanwhile, Naruto continued descending. He didn't see the engineers because both had gone to breakfast before beginning their duties. Therefore, he wasted no time and silently approached where Jack, who was lying on her bed and quietly reading the data she had obtained about Cerberus. However, her surprise had been great at the sight of a silhouette descending just above her. She instinctively grabbed the gun hidden under her pillow and shot a few times at the strange silhouette, which seemed to be a hologram as her bullets went through it as if it weren't there. Naruto, realizing that he had disturbed the resident, descended rapidly and stood right next to her bed. Sorry for bothering you, but I brought breakfast, he spoke apologetically. What the hell? Catman? How the hell did you do that? She exclaimed, turning to him. The surprise was great, after all. Naruto almost dropped the tray when he heard Jack's nickname for him, but he avoided it nimbly, making Jack look at him in disbelief due to the surreal way in which he had moved. Please don't call me that. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, he corrected with a visible eyebrow tick. Whatever. Explain yourself, now, Jack ordered, dismissing his order. Sighing, Naruto put the tray on the table beside her bed. What's your problem? He asked, now crossing his arms. That none of your business. I've asked you a question, and I want the answer. She spoke in a dismissive tone again. Naruto narrowed his eyes, not with annoyance, but because he sensed, after analyzing her facial expressions, the reason for her behavior. He could confirm it by accessing her mind, but he had learned to respect the privacy of others thanks to Shepard. I think I understand it. Naruto spoke. What do you understand? Jack asked. You don't trust me. No, you don't trust anyone on this ship. Maybe Shepard, but I don't know. The reason? I don't know that either, but that glow in your eyes. I know that very well. The eyes of suspicion, mistrust, hatred, and bitterness. I know them very well, and that lets me guess the reason for your attitude. Am I wrong? He earnestly asked. Although she wouldn't admit it, Jack was surprised at how easily he had seen through her. It wasn't something that people could achieve because she had excellent defenses against it, but this person before her had demolished them with great ease. Hiding her surprise, she snorted. And what are you, a kind of psychologist with superpowers? Naruto chuckled and sarcastically spoke. Yes, I even have X-ray vision, now I see you almost naked. He had said that because her clothes left little to the imagination. With a snort, Jack replied, Well, I'd rather dress like this than a ridiculous outfit like yours. Naruto almost fell backward. Why do people keep saying that? My suit represents the title I've earned of a sage, he said, opening both hands and pointing them toward his body. Jack laughed mockingly and continued. Sage? Ha ha ha, you must be kidding, you can't be more than 26 years old. Naruto chuckled. I have more years than you could count before getting tired. Jack released a similar laugh, thinking that he was again speaking sarcastically again. Therefore, she didn't pay much attention to that statement, and continued. Anyway, now tell me, how the hell did you get through the roof of the ship as if it were nothing? I even saw you floating, and there was no sign that you were using biotics. So, who the hell are you? First of all, eat your breakfast. It'll get cold. He spoke as he grabbed the tray and handed it to Jack, who reluctantly grabbed it and placed it on her lap as she watched Naruto, waiting for his explanation. While carrying the food to her mouth, Naruto briefly explained his place of origin, the reason for being in the Normandy, and what Jack had been waiting to hear, the explanation of his abilities. Curiously, Jack remained silent throughout the story. However, Naruto could see that smiles of disbelief crossed her face at times. Once Naruto finished his story, he saw that Jack had placed the tray on the nightstand before lying back on her bed and grabbing the tablet that contained the data of Cerberus. Hey, Catman! If you didn't want to tell me, you should have just shut your mouth rather than making up that fantasy story. But hey, I'll give you something, they were entertaining stories. You would earn good money in some bars on Omega, with magic performances included. You would be quite the attraction. Even though Naruto knew she was joking, he contemplated the idea. Maybe. I should ask Arya to help me out. Although I don't know, I would call too much attention. He thought with his fingers on his chin. At the mention of that name, Jack pulled the tablet away from her face and turned her head slightly toward him. Do you know Arya? Yes, I visit her occasionally. Although for some strange reason, the boss doesn't want to, just us. Boss? Ah, the elusive man, she added, speaking with contempt at the end. Of course not. My boss is the original. I'm a simple clone, corrected the clone, to avoid misunderstandings. The clone smiled slightly and replied. While the clones that the boss usually creates have their own personality, even then we are bounded to him, and we can't do anything that could harm him. So we're not a danger, and in the unlikely that we could, he could simply make us disappear by just thinking it. Jack looked at him with a look of, what the hell? Having no idea what he was talking about. You're out of your mind, she declared, thinking she was talking to a madman. The clone sighed and turned his head to the right, making a puff of smoke appear at the moment, and seconds later, a perfect clone of himself. Damn! Jack exclaimed in shock, not believing what she was seeing. She approached slowly and touched the new clone, noticing that it was solid and not just a hologram or some kind of trick of the light. Are you really a ninja? Hell, I thought you were making it all up, she expressed, now moving away a little. Naruto nodded slightly, so she said. Interesting. This mission may be fun after all. Oh? Did you believe me already? Won't you ask me for more tests? This time, he asked with interest. Jack shrugged. No one can create clones of themselves like that. So your story fits? I'm not a person who denies the facts once I have them in front of me. I see. People usually tend to be more skeptical. But it's good to know that you've believed me. It would have been problematic if you saw my skills on a mission and lost focus from it. Then he looked at his clone and made it disappear. It was then when Jack understood what he meant by make us disappear at any time. Hey, Naruto, right? Yeah? The clone asked, watching Jack sighing. I think I misjudged you. You're not one of those lackeys of Cerberus, like the cheerleader. When I boarded a Cerberus ship, I thought that everyone would be members of that organization. However, I can see that I was wrong. So I owe an apology for my attitude earlier. Naruto smiled widely and answered. Of course. Some of them have joined only for the commander. Give the crew a chance. Jack nodded, but there was something that pissed her off. But get that stupid grin off your face. It's not like we're friends or anything, I just said that I misjudged you. Don't read any more into it. Sorry. He apologized, scratching his head. I think I should go now. See you later, or in some mission if Shepard wants to. Well, goodbye. With that said, he turned around and almost floated away to Miranda's room to talk to her, when Jack's voice stopped him. Hey, wait a minute. I have a favor to ask you. Naruto said he would gladly listen. Therefore, Jack looked at him with seriousness. Wanna fuck? Choking on his own saliva and coughing because of this, Naruto mouthed the words with difficulty. Why do you ask that so suddenly? It's not like I don't want to, but why? Jack smiled at his behavior and spoke with extreme sweetness and sarcasm. Oh, what happened? Does the old man has been so much time without having sex that he blushes at the first mention of it? Naruto instantly changed his expression. Please, Blushing? Do you want me to teach you what blushing really is? He challenged, stepping forward. Show her, boy. Kurama encouraged, quite attentive to the development of the conversation. Jack got up from her bed and stood in front of Naruto, only now realizing how tall Naruto was. Not paying much attention to it, she answered the challenge. And what will you do? Will you teach me your techniques from 100,000 years ago when you didn't even know the right place to put it? Naruto, with a vein marked on his forehead, stared into her eyes and spoke in a threatening tone. You've played with fire, now, get burnt. Consequently, and before Jack could react, Naruto moved his right hand and held her arm firmly. Afterward, Naruto proved his point in a way that Jack would never forget. Meanwhile, planet Corliss. After going through a contingent of Blue Sun soldiers plus furious Krogans, Shepard and her squad entered the room where Oker stood. There, the radical militant and the commander engaged in a conversation about his potential participation in the suicide mission. Oker mentioned that he was immersed in an investigation, in the key to his legacy. Specifically, a pure Krogan, who was in a tank of the room. Shepard said she could use a soldier like that on her team, but Oker flatly refused. However, he stated that they could reach an agreement in exchange for a ride off the planet. However, negotiations stopped because Jedor, the current commander of the Blue Suns, had called blank slate on the project. Therefore, her subordinates released toxic gases in the rooms of the cloning facility. Oker, not wanting to lose the fruit of his labor, asked Shepard to take care of that problem. She had no problems and soon managed to stop the spreading of the gas while taking out Jedor and the rest of her acolytes. They went to Oker's room again, but upon arrival, a recording of him greeted them. It said that he had no idea what the collectors wanted, but he also thanked her for giving him enough time to save his prototype in time, his legacy. And now they were there, looking at the tank that contained a Krogan that looked so different from those that Shepard had seen so far in her life. Shepard didn't know how a pure Krogan would be, but something, besides the continuous remarks of Oker, made her believe that this Krogan was one. However, she stopped paying attention to his physical appearance when she heard Gurus saying, "Why would someone so fanatical sacrifice himself for one Krogan?" Shepard turned her head toward him, listening. Zaid continuing, "A bullet in his brain would save us a lot of headaches." he suggested as a course of action to avoid the trouble of carrying a highly dangerous species aboard the Normandy. Shepard, on the other hand, shook her head. A pure Krogan could pack a hell of a punch. We can always use another heavy hitter. If he'll help. I doubt anyone's asked for his opinion, Gurus added instantly. That we'll find out, Shepard replied, now moving her hand to her helmet communicator. Normandy? Oka is a no-go. But we have a package that needs retrieval. And he's a big one. At that moment, she heard the voice of Joker. Roger that, Commander. Then she turned around and looked at her companions. Another successful mission. It's time to go. But she suddenly stopped there. For two reasons. First, because she heard a cackle, and secondly, because she saw a hen at the end of the room. And it wasn't just any hen, it was the hen, and therefore, Shepard stared at her. Both men looked at Shepard with a raised eyebrow, not knowing why she had suddenly stopped, and why she was looking into that direction. They also turned their heads and could see that hen, with strange eyes, was pecking at the floor of the room. Asterisk cluck cluck star dot. Shepard? Gurus spoke with confusion. You two stay away. And for your welfare, don't disrespect that hen, she whispered, cracking her neck and doing some stretching. What the hell are you talking about? Zaid asked. It's just in stew. But he stopped there because Shepard had turned and pointed her weapon at him. I told you, don't disrespect her. That's not just any hen, Naruto created her. You can get an idea what that means. Zaid snorted and continued. You think too highly of that guy. What does it matter if that's a creation of Buddha himself? It's just in stew. He was interrupted again, but this time, it wasn't due to a gun, but by the hand of Shepard. Okay. Get close and tell her what you think, but don't complain to me later. I'll show you how to do things, Zaid expressed, taking a few steps forward towards the hen. Shepard just smiled, and just then she saw Zaid pointing his fingers at the hen. Hey you! He exclaimed as he came closer. Mandori turned her head toward him, hearing him continuing. You are in stew! And again he couldn't finish what he had in mind. This time, because something had sent him to the other end of the room at a rate of knots. He crashed hard into the metal wall of the room and crumpled to the floor. A single header of Mandori was enough to knock him unconscious. Damn! Gurus whispered, impressed by what he had seen. Well, he didn't see the hen moving at all, only Zaid flying because something had hit him, but concluded that it had been the hen as she had landed to continue pecking. Once Shepard had finished warming up, she turned to Gurus and said, Take him back to the shuttle, I'll catch you up soon. She said the latter because Shepard knew she wouldn't be able to grab the hen, but she would still give her best. Gurus shrugged and then placed Zaid's arm around his neck before leaving and from there going toward the landing craft. When just the two of them were there, Mandori approached Shepard to say, So, you have already learned to respect your superiors, eh? Cluck cluck, she cackled. Shepard wanted to be honest, but she swallowed it, and replied as she bowed her head slightly and took her hand in her chest. Yes, Mandori-sama. She had learned the honorific from Naruto, who after hearing about the first meeting between the two of them, couldn't help laughing, but he told her to use that honorific at the end of her name in order to appease her. Mandori flapped, but this time for the joy of seeing a full human acknowledging her position. I like you? After all, you're not like the rest of the mindless humans. Cluck cluck. You have some intelligence, unlike the others, enough to learn good manners. Shepard, with her head down, gritted her teeth and thought. Stupid hen, just wait. When I have enough strength, I'll make you eat your own words. Then she got it up and looked at Mandori. Could it be that your creator isn't a human being? Is he just as dumb as the others? If she could growl, the hen would have done it, but she simply cackled as she flapped rapidly. Don't ever compare Naruto-sama with your kind again. He is practically a deity. It's a concept that your kind will never succeed in conceiving. Cluck cluck, exclaimed the altered hen. Shepard rolled her eyes, and words escaped from her involuntarily. Shut up, she whispered, but Mandori managed to hear. What? She asked, stomping the floor in a threatening manner. No, nothing. It was just curiosity, Mendori-sama, she answered, mentally sighing when seeing her calming down. Mendori nodded and turned. Well, it's about time. I hope it won't be as disappointing as yesterday. Such being the case, I'll be much more rigorous from now on. This time, there was no clucking, only the serious words of a dangerous and devilish opponent. Shepard just nodded and prepared her muscles for the race of her life. Once Mendori noted that Shepard was ready, she ran to an unspecified direction, followed closely by a very, and rightly, irritated Commander Shepard. 4 hours later, Normandy. Tiredness and pain, that was all Shepard could think of after returning to the ship. They were 4 hours of uninterrupted running, except at times when Mendori lunged toward her to attack her. Naturally, she had been unable to defend herself against the attacks of the fast hen, but she noted, however, that her body would very quickly become used to her blows, until the point where, although she still received them, she could endure them much more. That continued during those 4 hours, and Gurus had left the planet along with Zaid, who was still unconscious, when the Normandy sent another shuttle to pick up the Krogan. She had obtained several bruises and lacerations from this small skirmish, although the only thing in Shepard's mind was the result that Naruto's training would give her. She couldn't deny that she felt excited to see her first signs of progress. Nonetheless, Naruto had told her that Shepard wouldn't notice them until she got used to her weights, which, without Shepard knowing it, increased in weight by themselves as she got used to them. Not exponentially, but gradually, so that she couldn't notice the trap that Naruto had installed on his tools. With her right hand over her ribs, she hobbled toward the bridge. The voice of Joker reached her, and asked if she had been fighting the Reapers unbeknown. Shepard replied that it had been an even more terrible opponent, and kept walking, this time towards her cabin. However, before arriving, Jacob had told her that he intended to talk to her in the communications room on the package that they had retrieved from the site of her last mission. With a later and sent Naruto immediately to my room. She took the elevator to get a quick shower upon reaching her destination. Once she felt clean enough, she went to her closet and put on her duty clothes. After that, she went to her couch and sat there until Naruto's arrival. Looking at the clock, Shepard got some nervous tics because 30 minutes had passed since she left the bathroom, and there were no signs that Naruto would appear. She found herself wondering why he was taking so long. There wasn't an impending threat. She had neither heard that someone from Alliance had come aboard, much less that he had gone to work as superhero around the galaxy or something like that. Inevitably, her irritable state increased. She growled and got to her feet as she thought. What could he possibly be doing? Damn it, does he believe that training with his hen is easy or what? She walked towards the door, still deep in her angry thoughts, causing her not to pay attention to where she was going. Therefore, when the door had opened, she inevitably crashed against something that made her fall back on the floor. She rubbed her butt and looked up, seeing a familiar face along with a hand in front of her face. With a grunt, Shepard took his hand and stood up. Why did you take so long? Shepard spoke, looking at Naruto with that feeling that was afflicting her since she had woken up. Naruto, scratching his cheek, walked toward the couch in the room. Reluctantly, Shepard followed him and sat on the sofa in front of him, waiting for him to speak. Sorry for the delay, Shepard. I was talking to Miranda until recently. She had something important to tell me. Do you remember? Shepard recalled that moment and asked with crossed arms. And about what? That, well, minutes before. After Naruto had finished that extraordinary meeting that Jack would never forget, Naruto had walked up the stairs towards the elevator. Before he could reach it, he saw 2 blushing engineers who simply couldn't look him in the face. Everything indicated they had heard their screams when he was down there, so he strongly encouraged them not to talk to anyone about it, but he had winked at Daniels, who naturally blushed even more, but it caused no significant impact on Donnelly. After he had arrived at the elevator, he remembered what Miranda had told him the night before. Therefore, he selected her deck and walked to her cabin. The door automatically opened, so he went in without words. There he saw Miranda, sitting behind her desk and typing on her console. Miranda stopped when seeing Naruto standing in front of her, and turned her chair toward him. Thanks for coming by, I was waiting for you. Miranda spoke first. Naruto saw her standing up and walking to the back of her cabin, where a couch was, inviting Naruto to sit next to her. Naruto nodded silently and sat down. He met her eyes, seeing some regret in them. "This is something that I told Shepard, and I'll say it to you now," she started, sighing at the end. Naruto remained silent, not wanting to say anything that might make the task of expressing her thoughts more difficult. "I wanted to apologize. At first, when I realized the intentions of the commander, I thought that you wouldn't be suitable for this mission." Naruto raised an eyebrow but didn't open his mouth and allowed Miranda to explain herself. "You're probably thinking, why do you say that if you showed yourself very interested in my skills, to the point of telling them to your boss?" Miranda realized that her deduction was correct, as she saw Naruto nodding. Therefore, she resumed. "It wasn't enthusiasm. I was cautious. I didn't want you near this ship. I thought if I informed the elusive man, then he would have been able to do something about it. However, it seems that I was totally wrong." With a small pause, she continued. "Before I tell you the reason, I'll tell you why I didn't want you to be part of this mission." "Go ahead." Miranda sighed as she ran her fingers through her forehead. "You must know that you're someone very dangerous, deadly, a man capable of ending our armies alone." Those were the words that she had chosen to begin her speech. Naruto felt a little disappointed by these words, but Miranda continued before he could get the wrong idea. "I deduced that very quickly when I saw you fighting that beast. That's why I couldn't avoid asking myself, what is he? What are his intentions? Why should we trust him? What if he is just using us? What could we do in that case?" As you can see, I had many doubts about the commander's decision to make you part of the crew. But I said nothing about it, and I'm not ashamed to say it, because I was afraid that you would retaliate. Surprised, Naruto just nodded. He didn't know he had caused those feelings in her because he had never inquired much on the feelings or memories of the crew members. "Wow, I didn't know that. I'm sorry." He laughed at the end, scratching his head. "Don't worry, that's one of the reasons I realized I was wrong." He looked at her, hearing her continuing. "That ingenuity of yours isn't something that one can find in these parts of the galaxy, let alone in someone of your abilities. Even the commander isn't like that. But it isn't something wrong, but quite the opposite. That quality of yours made me realize that you didn't have bad intentions and that you really wanted to help this galaxy. Although I believe that the commander had a lot to do with that." She deduced the latter. "What do you mean?" he asked, out of curiosity. "She has a fire that would make people willing to follow her into hell itself," she answered. "I couldn't agree more," the clone indicated, smiling slightly. Miranda also did it and continued. "But you don't have a fire, you have a flare. I'm sure you don't think as I do, but I have to defer. Since the moment you offered to hear me out, despite what I had tried to do, I realized that other peculiarity of yours. I apologize again for misjudging you." Naruto quickly waved his hands since he felt a bit embarrassed. "No, it's also my fault. I didn't talk much with the rest of the crew. It's true that I didn't think about my condition. In my world, it wasn't uncommon to see people of my kind, and therefore, people didn't have many problems with us, less so if we were part of a village. But things are different here. I had to explain myself better and talk more with all of you so that there were no misunderstandings. Hence, I also apologize for the trouble I've caused you." This time he got to his feet and bowed apologetically, which brought a smile to the Cerberus operative. "You didn't have to do that, but I guess it's a tradition of yours." She said that because everyone on the ship already knew that the customs of his planet were quite similar to those of Japan. Naruto raised his head and continued. "You have a point, but I wasn't like this before. It started from the moment I had responsibilities. I had to grow." "Was it when you became the leader of your planet?" "That's right, it wasn't just me anymore, but everyone." Miranda nodded and stood up to return to her desk. "That was all I wanted to say for the moment. If I feel the need to talk to you again, I'll let you know." Standing up, Naruto nodded. "Okay, I'm usually in the ship's hangar. I'll be waiting there." They were about to say goodbye when they heard Itachi's voice. "As you both have finished talking, I have to inform you that the commander has requested your presence in her cabin, Naruto-san. How long ago? About 30 minutes ago. Naruto sighed while scratching his head. I'd better go, she'll be upset. He bowed slightly and left the room after Miranda told him goodbye. Back to the present. And that's what we talked about, Naruto said, already returning to the present. So, why did you call me? He asked. Shepherd, sighing and rubbing her body, replied. I need you to heal me. Naruto smiled and spoke as he stood up and walked toward her. Did Midori-chan treat you badly? Did you treat her respectfully as I told you? He inquired with a smile, already standing and kneeling in front of her to bring his hands to her. Shepherd laughed ironically, but then leaned her head on the couch and closed her eyes, shuddering again when feeling the relaxing sensation invading her body. However, this time, it was different because some pain and fatigue had remained. Even Naruto ended with the technique. Why do I still feel pain and fatigue? She asked, confused. Naruto replied thoughtfully. I can't make you get used to this method. If I do it, you'll become very intolerant to pain, and that's something that will negatively affect your training. I'll only heal you completely when you really need it. Right now there's no need for it, you're not very hurt. Shepherd wanted to protest, but she knew that Naruto was right. Therefore, she sighed in defeat. You always find a way to shut me up. She pointed out amid sighs, now looking into his eyes. Naruto smiled slightly and added, So do you. We're somewhat alike in that. Shepherd just smiled, but with the passing of seconds she stood up from her seat. By the way, any news from the original? Shaking his head, the clone replied. No more than what I've already told you. He's still investigating, although he has already spotted the person in question. However, he hasn't yet seen anything suspicious enough to get involved. He doesn't want to expose himself until the right time. Shepherd nodded and walked toward the exit, followed by Naruto, who didn't want to stay behind. Well, let me know when you have news. Now, shall we train? The clone smiled at Shepherd's willingness, which made him nod. Okay. Get ready to suffer. He finished, chuckling like a madman. Shepherd swallowed hard and kept walking. The result, that was all that mattered. Chapter end.
Now watch daily exclusive and censored lemon stories and mature content, along with NSFW images, featuring harem girls characters from the fics. Access all this and more on my Patreon. Click the link in the description to explore.